Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. How are we
Good
doing today?
afternoon.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Intermediate AML Compliance Systems. I'm at the Institute today and we're having some technical difficulties, so we'll start promptly at 6. We're just trying to ensure that the persons that are in person can also see the screen.
Hi, Miss Bullard. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Annette. How have you been?
You miss me?
Of course, all of you, and I'm so happy. I'm so happy all of you have decided to come back and continue on. So I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the exam results as well.
Oh, very good, very good.
Good job, good job.
Thank you, thank you.
So how have you been otherwise?
Hanging in there by God's grace.
Okay, well, don't let go. Life is very tough. Just don't let go.
Yes, we know it.
That's good. So you've been keeping up with your readings. I have Daniela here with me, and I think she bring a newspaper to the class even. Not even a newspaper, no, not even a newspaper. So have you been keeping up with the newspaper clippings and networking?
Well, with the newspaper, yes. Networking.
No, y'all don't want these jobs, okay? And it's a pandemic.
Yeah, I have to stay inside, Miss Bullard. I can't go outside.
No, everybody is online. Toastmasters is online. Rotary is online. Tawanas, everybody having online meetings.
Well, we had a choice to go in person.
To this class?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, I was told that there were 1 or 2 persons that needed to be in person, and so I hope not. The person who was here saying no, she didn't need to be in person, so I'm hoping that we can continue fully online.
Oh.
Is it absolutely necessary? Cassandra, you do not need to be in person. Stop it. Now, anyway, let me see who else. Who else needs to be in person? Nobody, right?
Oh,
Everybody can pay attention from the comforts of their home, in their bed, and be engaged. Without now, if you have interruptions, I know for us who have, for those who have husbands or very small children, it's very difficult because when they see mommy at home, they think it's time to play. They don't understand that mommy needs, or they hungry, or they need something, right? So if you have that situation where mommy doesn't get a break and she doesn't have a hideout spot at home, then by all means, we can come in. But Miss Bullet, it was need to could save on gas and her makeup and driving here, all of that good stuff if we stay online. But if not, that's fine. I'll be here every week. Sorry?
I could stay online. I just didn't know if it was an option.
Yeah, but I found this out recently as well that some persons request. So if you're having difficulties and feel that seeing me in person will, get you to where you need to be at the end of the semester, then by all means you can come in. It's no problem at all. Right, Renelle? You might get that A++ if you come and see me once a week.
A+++.
There you go. There you go. There you go. But I'm happy to see so many of you that were in the intro class have returned, and it's a lot of good information, and we're gonna get through it, and hopefully you'll decide to go all the way to ICA. Okay, so does everybody have their book and had the opportunity to read the chapter 1?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay, so you all know this could definitely be discussion based. Miss Bullet and read. You all don't like to read. Everybody is complaining about reading. Yeah, no giving away points for non-participation, and Miss Bullet and repeating the questions 3 and 4 times. You'll have to participate and read. So this could be discussion based. Okay. And so we are definitely going to earn all our points this semester. More people. Are we getting backlash from somebody? I'm not sure who it is. Because think it's
Hold on a second.
okay. Okay, yeah. Okay, that worked. Okay. Oh, perhaps not, because I don't see him any longer. Okay, so did we all receive an instruction sheet? An email with 3 attachments?
Yeah.
No, I never got that.
You
Okay.
received it.
Notes, James knows.
Yeah.
Let me just see. Can you give me your email address and I'll just flip it to you quickly?
Yeah, email it to
SEM
SEMAKO
AKO
81
81
at hotmail.com.
at hotmail.com.
Now I got the book.
Okay, so I just sent it to you and there's 3 attachments in there.
Okay.
Thank you so much, my lovely uncle. I love you so much.
Good evening. Good evening. You have a book? No, we're just having some.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
James. Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, so we just have the IT guy here trying to connect as we have more persons joining us in class. Okay, but welcome to Intermediate AML and Compliance Systems. My name is Mrs. Bullard. For the most part, most of you would have been in intro and are familiar. For those who are not familiar, I've been with the Institute for the past 6 years. Primarily my career, my background is compliance, operations and audit. I talk about Royal Bank all the time because I spent 16 years there, the good 16 years. I worked from 2000 to 2016, so this the last 4 or 5 years has nothing to do with me in terms of Royal Bank, but Royal Bank, so very good institution, has set the groundwork and the foundation for my career. So I normally, all the stories that I tell normally refer to my career at Royal Bank. I don't know if everybody had an opportunity to go over my email that I sent. This course is for 10 weeks from 6 to 9 p.m. on Thursdays. It'll run from February 25th until May the 6th, which is your final exam. And it's good to have that information up front because most institutions offer you study leave. And so if you want to, jump right on that, it's a good time to put in study leave at your institutions if they offer it to you, or find out if they do offer. And if they don't, it's a good time to plan your vacation. Normally 1 or 2 days, the day of the exam and the day before off should be sufficient for you, with have time off from work, but you want to at least dedicate 2 or 3 hours per week to studying, ensuring that you read the chapter, come to class prepared. As most of you know, there's a 10% rating, or the course is assessed by class participation, your quiz and exams, which will actually be in the form of homework, and then a final examination. So class participation is 10%, the quiz and exams is 20%, final examination is 70%. And Ms. Bullard also offers 5% bonus point because in these times, it seems like networking is the way to go, and it's who you know. And so you don't only want to say it's who you know, but you also want to ensure that your resume is up to par. So I encourage everybody to attend civic organizations, Rotary, Toastmasters, or Kiwanis, and come back to the class and share with the class, and you get an additional 5%. Now, a lot of persons have taken advantage and was very happy that they took advantage of that 5% bonus, because again, for the scholars, that's the difference between an A and a B. And for the persons who are on the borderline, that's the difference between 65 and the overall mark of 70% that is required to pass the class. Okay, so I know it's very difficult to work all day from 9 to 5 and then come to class from 6 to 9. It's very, very difficult. And so that bonus point is to, assist you. It's one of the benefits of the class. So please, good afternoon. Please take advantage of that benefit. Okay, so I would have sent out an email. Did everybody receive? You didn't get one? Okay, so
I didn't get one either.
Symphony?
Afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay, so I have Symphony's email. So just a moment while I shoot this to Symphony.
Thank you.
And so Symphony.
Sorry, what was the context of the email?
So it said, welcome to Intermediate AML and Compliance Systems. Did you not?
That was the one with the 3 attachments?
Yes, that was the one.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, okay, you received that. Okay, so I'm going to try and share my screen. Yeah, IT is still working, trying to get a code, but for those who are here, let me try and share my screen to see if we can bring it up on the screen, and it gives you instructions for the class. And like I said, most of you who would have been in the intermediate class would have seen these instructions before, where it talks about homework. There are 5 homework questions. Normally, I make the first question mandatory. However, I did not do it this time, but I still would encourage each person to complete question 1. There are, if we look at the back of the book, in case 1, there should be the Eggman group. And the Eggman group is a group of FIUs around the world, and they come together and they write about various cases. I think the recommendations may be the first, and then it may be case 2 or 3. I'm not certain how your book may be set up, because I have an older version of the book. Yeah, they have the books in there. Does everybody see at the back of the book the Eggman group?
Yeah. Yes, it's listed as case number 5 in my book.
Okay, so look, check them case number 5 for the person for the newer versions of the book. Yeah, so if we look at the table of contents, yeah, so they are divided at the back of the book. So the book is made up of, I think it's 10 chapters. And then the thickness is from the various internet essays, writings that have been compiled, just to give you an overview. So you can spend some time reading, and in your study time, reading the various money laundering cases or terrorist financing cases at the back of the book. And so for the most part, it's just 10 chapters, which are very small. They're a bit longer than the intermediate chapters. And then there are various research reports that you can use to, as examples in your homework or on your final exam or what have you. They don't have it anymore. Okay.
Just a quick question about the homework. Is that a weekly thing, or is that something that we?
Okay, so
how do you normally structure? Yeah, how do you normally structure that?
Yeah, so you select 1 question from the 5 questions. Okay, and you write an essay about 1,000 words or less. We don't want more than 3 to 4 pages. and you select one of the topics. Now, the homework is each topic has a specific date. The first due date is Wednesday, March the 10th. And it's related to the Egmont group cases at the back of the book. So for this semester, last semester we did bribery and corruption. Then the previous one we did fraud. This semester we're going to do drug trafficking. So if you look at the back of the book, there are 3 cases on drug trafficking.
Mhm. They didn't separate these properly, like, they didn't put any tabs in them, they just,
So the colored paper are the tabs.
no,
Because-
I have no colored paper whatsoever in my book.
And you don't have case 1, case 2, or case 3?
Yeah, I have case 1, but it's not separated. So when you tell me to go there, it takes a while to find which one you're talking about because they're not
And
separated.
you don't have colored paper?
No, I don't have colored paper.
Okay, so if you don't mind, can you perhaps come back to the Institute and bring your book so they can, fix it so it'll be easy for you to find? Because again, it's various like writings and research. That's
Well, I mean, it's just
taken
when
from
you're referring to them, I like to get to them pretty quickly rather than having to shuffle through and try to find exactly what you're talking about if we go refer to them,
Right, and that's why I'm asking if you can bring your book back so they can properly organize it.
No problem.
So they can give you the colored paper, and so I can say it's either case 1, case 2, case 3, what have you.
Okay.
Okay, and that would make it easier.
Okay, thank you.
So what case are we looking at?
Okay, so there
What?
are 3 cases under drug trafficking. The topic for this semester is drug trafficking. So if we look at the table of contents, we see the table of contents, right? And we see 3 cases under drug trafficking.
Multiple heroin, Afghan heroin, and illegal drug.
Right, correct. So those are the 3 cases.
I don't even have a table of contents in this.
Yeah, obviously they gave
So-
out different books because I don't have that table of contents either.
Same here. I don't have that one. I just have workbook chapters and then it
Yeah,
goes
that's it.
to the
That's all.
guide.
Yeah, that's all I have.
I'm in the same situation. I don't have the table of contents.
Go right to the thing.
Ms. Bullard, are you referring to multiple heroin, Afghan heroin, the illegal supply? That's what you're talking about?
Yes, that's what I'm referring to. So in the new book, this is case number 5.
Case number 5 for me talks about human trafficking.
And case
Sorry?
number 5 for me has a W8 Benz sample.
Okay.
Case number 4 for me is the Edmund.
Okay, so it's case number 4 for some persons. Okay, so on case number 4, when you open, you will see a preface about who the Egmont group is. And then you will see a table of contents.
Okay, I'm where you are now.
Hold on.
It's
I am
case
definitely,
5 for
Okay,
me.
okay, it's case 4 for me. Okay.
hold on.
Okay, so has everybody found it? Either case 4 or case 5?
Hold on.
Multiple heroin.
Okay, so I'm looking at,
Yes, I have it in 5.
Colored paper.
Michael's the one.
I'm looking at the
I have it.
financial. I'm looking at the Egmont Group
Financials? Yeah,
of Financial Intelligence Unit.
yes, correct.
That's case 4 for me.
Okay. And please, like I said, we've had some issues with the book in the past, so please just bring your book back to the office and have them corrected. If you don't have the colored paper, because it will be difficult to find,
Multiple heroin.
no, it says the Egmont group first. Yeah, so you have to look at the case, right, and then,
Maybe.
okay, so does everybody have it now?
Oh, that's what this one is, case 4.
Ms. Bullard, are you referring to the email?
No, I'm referring to the book, Does everybody see the Egmont group cases in the book, at the back of the book?
I have it. but
Case 4, case 5.
I have it, but I'm trying to fix my book. Falling apart.
Sorry?
As I have it, I'm trying to fix the book, it's falling apart.
Okay. All right. Like I said, I do apologize, but let me just Google it. You know, it's online. So let me just pull it up so everybody will ensure that it, you know, we're on the same page.
Okay.
And then that perhaps will help. So everybody, we can ensure that we're looking at the same thing.
God.
Okay, so for the most part, I'm trying to pull it up online, but in the meantime, we see that there are okay, we see that there are 3 cases on the drug trafficking, right? And so what question 1 seeks for you to do is read those 3 cases.
Charger on my phone.
Sorry, can somebody mute their mics, please?
Section 1 of what? Sorry, we're referring to section 1 of what now? Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up here.
No, I didn't say section 1. I said there are 3 cases on the drug trafficking. Okay, question 1 on the instruction sheet.
And where, that's the thing you just emailed us.
Yes, that's the
Yeah.
homework.
Okay, hold on. Sorry. That'll be labeled on the, not the ICB handbook.
I have it up on the screen. Can you see? Can you see the screen?
Okay, yes.
Okay, so it says financial analysis has been conducted by a recognized group, mapping out identified risks in the regions across the world. Using case studies from the Egmont Group on drug trafficking, discuss techniques and methods used for the flow of criminal money. Okay, and so you would read those 3 cases and you will write an essay up to 1,000 words or 3 to 4 pages on those 3 cases.
Okay.
Okay.
And we have to do all 5 of these.
No, you don't. You have to select one. I am
Okay.
just recommending that you do, even if you select another one for submission, that you do question 1, because more than likely that will be on the final exam. So the final exam is going to be 4 essays, 1 mandatory question, and about 15 or 20 multiple choice. More than likely, this is going to be the mandatory question worth 20 points. And this is why I'm recommending that you should, you know, read those stories and try to compile your essay and answer question 1.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. But if you decide that you will read it, but you won't submit it because you don't want to make the March 10th date, you're allowed to pick any of the other 4 questions there, 5 questions in total. But you have to submit 1 for homework if you want to get the 20%.
Well, I don't have the questions in the book. I don't see.
Yeah, it's on this. Michael, can we get a copy? Yeah, can we get a copy? Thank you. Okay. Okay, so is that clear? Are we clear on what needs to be done? We understand the topic is drug trafficking and we'll write an overview. Okay, and so that's just for homework that needs to be submitted. I would recommend that, you know, in your spare time and in your readings, you read all of the cases. There are various topics, and again, the FIU is a group of FIUs. The Egmont Group is a group of FIUs around the world. Okay, and what they do is they come together. Yeah, financial intelligence units. Yeah, and so they come together and they share information, and they would have documented the most popular cases that, you know, countries would have dealt with, and they share this information, and this is where all that information comes from. Okay, so take a stab at question 1. You can submit it if you would like a grade, or you can just have that information and then select another question that you want to submit for a grade. Again, only one essay is required.
And you say this is due on March 11th?
No, the due date is there, Wednesday, March the 10th. So it's normally the day before the class. Okay, if you choose question 2, then you'll turn that in on March 24th. If you choose
Oh, I see
question
what you
3,
mean.
then on April 7th, and so on.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Then that only one question is required of the 5.
Yes, to get your 20, yeah, to get your 20%. However, I suggest that you do number 1, or you do all of them, because again, all of these questions again will come back up on the final exam. And if you want an intro, we did see that happen, right? And I even saw the exact question come on the exam. Because correct. So there's a pool of questions when we select a you know, and the computer just spits out the question, and that's how the exam is. So again, I give these questions just for review for you to practice. So when you get to the final exam, there are no surprises. Okay. I've also attached the ICA book. For those of you who are new, this course is 3-tier. It starts with introduction, and that's just 4 weeks, and it just gives an overview of compliance and AML, and that's where you make the decision if you want to go any further. Intermediate is the second stage, is 10 weeks. So that means that you are interested, or you understand how comprehensive it is, and you came to the next level, right? After level 2, which is 10 weeks, then there's the ICA, and that's 9 months of AML, anti-money laundering, and then 9 months of governance, risk, and compliance. So again, much more costly, and it's 18 months compared to the 4 weeks, the 10 weeks. That's 18 months. That's an international designation. No, that's not US, that's the UK. So it's handled through the University of Manchester. Right. And so we have the classes here, but you are internationally, you receive designation from the University of Manchester. Okay, and then you become a member of the International Compliance Association. Okay, and so again, some persons stop at intro because again, compliance isn't for everybody. You have to be able to read. Once you read, you have to be able to make decisions. Okay, so compliance is decision-based. There's no manual like an operations manual where you can go to and see what you should decide. All of it is decision-based. Okay, so have to be able to read, have to be able to scale down. There's loads of information out there. You have to be able to scale down what you read. And once you scale it down, then you have to be able to make decisions based on the information you would have gathered. And then there's a lot of research involved. Okay, and so again, I don't like to give everybody the doom and gloom report. I don't want to scare anybody away. It is achievable. Okay, so don't feel like before I start, but if you have a problem reading, and a lot of persons complain, 7 essays, Miss Bullet, that's horrendous, but we did it, right? And a lot of us, sorry, yeah, the 7 essays and hands were hurting, but we did it, and we are now here to intermediate. So less essays to write in intermediate. However, it's more information required. Okay, and so when we get to ICA, 9 months of AML, 9 months of compliance, this is why we practice and we write these essays, because in order to successfully complete ICA, you have to write 3 essays, right? And each essay is 25 to 3,000 words. Okay, and all of it is, they normally use topics where there's not a lot of research out there. So you have to interview persons, talk to people, share knowledge, network, and to be able to answer those questions. Okay, and again, we have 80% passing rate, and so all of this is achievable. And as you go through the process, it gets easier.
80% passing rate on the final paper.
Yes, yeah, and so. Yeah, a lot of persons, again, it's very overwhelming in the beginning, but as you go through the course, you see what is required, and you learn a lot through the whole process, and then you get more comfortable, and then you see that it's achievable. Okay, so again, all of this is just for practice. Okay, and for you to be successful in the ICA, if if you want to go further. Are there any questions so far? Are we clear about the 20% and what is required? Okay, so I also attached the ICA book, and it says on pages 17 to 19, it shows you how to reference your work. A big thing in ICA, when they mark you down. Some persons lose up to like 30% off of not proper referencing. And so it's in there in the handbook. So you can read the entire handbook, but for the purpose of this class, you can just read pages 17 to 19 to ensure you know how to reference and reference properly. It's good practice now. I won't take off any points, but you can't just make statements like, Shane Gibson was charged. No, you have to put, according to the Nassau Guardian, Shane Gibson was charged with this, or you have to, note your source. Okay, so this is good practice. When you do your homework, there's lots of information out there. Please don't copy and paste. A lot of persons just go to a big body of, a law, and they copy the whole law. We don't need you to copy the whole law. We need you to scale it down and say, these are the points, and this is what is relevant to my paper. You also don't want to, just copy and paste. Ms. Bullitt said, or a lot of people like to use, according to the intermediate book, blah, 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 and they copy a large body of work. You don't get any points for that. And again, we want to start practicing that from now, because when we get to ICA, there's a system where we upload our paper. And once we upload our paper, it tells you 20% of your paper came from the ICA book, 20% came from here, 20% came from the Tribune, from the Nassau Guardian. And once they give you an overall percentage of how, I guess, genuine your paper is, your own work. It'll even tell you 20% came from other students' work if you copy from a past paper, right? And so if you get up to 50%, you fail. So you would have written 25 to 3,000 words, which is very extensive. And before you even start, you would have failed, okay? So we want to get into practice of changing into our own words, reading a body of work, and then, interpreting it. Or, we test understanding. We don't test memory. And so we don't just need you to remember all of the things that you would have learned, but, to truly understand. And that's why it's discussion based. And this is why we want you to participate and ask questions. Okay? So this is what we do for homework. And again, I normally recommend, some people take offense to it, but I recommend, and I am going to make a prerequisite for this class as English 119. If you haven't taken English 119, some of us would have been to college 50 years ago. 50 years ago, some of us may have not been to college. Some of us, this is college now, and you want to ensure that you give proper essay writing. And so I just say, there are various styles. You want to ensure that, you have a thesis, an introduction, a body, and then a conclusion. You want to ensure that you write in proper essay style, okay? Because I have had people just give me lists or, that was not proper. And so you want to, all of this class, intro and intermediate, is practice. So when you get to ICA, there are no chances. You just upload to a system, and people who don't even know you, they mark this paper. And sometimes they say, the Brits are very meticulous, is marked in the UK. And so I may say, oh, I know Danielle, I know what you mean, and I can, understand, but they don't understand. So you want to practice writing, proper essays. And so that's what these classes are about. And that's how they were born, because a lot of persons were going directly into ICA and they were not doing very well because they never worked in compliance. They, didn't go to school. They had the first degree, but I graduated 20 years ago and the whole world has changed, right? And so this is how intermediate and intro was born, so that when you get to ICA and they say, risk-based approach or risk management and enhanced due diligence, that at least the terminology. And so it's not so difficult to be successful. Okay, so are there any questions about the 20% and what is required? Now, in my last class, I saw, that everybody saw the last chance to get there. 20% was April 21st, and so I got 10 essays on April 21st. Please don't wait till the last class to submit your essay or the last topic, question number 5. I don't want the entire class doing question number 5. And again, I strongly recommend question 1. Okay, and so based on what this class does, the next class will have it back as mandatory. This person's like, well, it don't make it mandatory, so I took it off. But again, it just depends on you. Okay, participation again, 10%. In my last class, not the one that finished in November, but this one, some people may have lost points because of participation. I would have called on them, they didn't respond. I had to threaten that we would turn on our cameras. I had to threaten that it would be in person. So again, it's discussion based. Ms. Bullet ain't coming to tell you all her life story is. So y'all read the book and we come ready to discuss, okay? Again, we want to be compliance professionals. We're required to read the newspaper every day, right? Every day, the business section, not the comics, not the grapevine, okay? The business section. Okay, and when we come, this is how we get our 10%. We either would read or we would share what we would have read in the newspapers, and not only locally, but international news as well.
No comics?
No, I mean, if it beats me the joke, sometimes the classes get a little boring. So 1 or 2 jokes, right, to keep the class going, but not all comics, okay? All right, and so again, I would have encourage you to subscribe definitely to your regulator. Okay, so you should know whether you work in the bank, that's the central bank, and if you work in the securities business, that's the Securities Commission. If you're a lawyer, accountant, or real estate agent, then that's the Compliance Commission. Gaming is the Gaming Board. Insurance is the Insurance Commission. But not only there, your regulator is Bahamas Financial Services Board. It's the Central Bank of the Bahamas. BACO, of course, all of you can sign up as students whilst you're here. It's a good organization. They normally have lunch and learns. And any industry issue or challenge that we're having, normally the association handles and paves the way and advocates for us to, get things fixed or put in place that we need put in place. The Attorney General office, our Attorney General is now the chairman of the CFATF, which is very good for so long. We've discussed that we need representation to assist us with some of the issues that we were having. And so definitely follow the Attorney General office. They do have industry briefings and updates. And again, when your regulator has these industry briefings and updates, you want to attend. A lot of times they are free. Sometimes there's a cost, but a lot of institutions, they buy 10 tickets because they want to be socially responsible. They say, oh, we bought 10 tickets to the tobacco luncheon. Nobody had time to go. Okay, so that's when you put your hand up and say, hey, I'll take my lunch hour, I'll go. Can I go? And then, like I say, sometimes they're free. So just find out how active your organization is, okay? And then the Financial Action Task Force and any other applicable website. Primarily, I worked at Royal Bank Trust. And so international news I had to follow, and I found the easiest way to follow it is through my Facebook feed. And so you won't have time to read every newspaper every day, but I was responsible, let's say, for Asia. So of course I subscribed to Asian news. And then at some points I had to deal with France. So there's El Lamonte. All that came across my Facebook feed. And I always tell the story that was very helpful to me because one day I saw this name, Danielle Albury. I was like, I know Danielle from somewhere. Where do I know her from? And again, I went to my system, I typed that in, and bam, she was a customer. Okay, Danielle had been charged with money laundering. Okay, so it helps. It helps all of this because it's a lot of information. We are required to know our customer. You say, Miss Bullet, how are we supposed to know 800 clients? That's how. These little things, they help. Gone are the days when we could say, oh, it's too much, or I just didn't know. No, we are required. Once you sign up for these jobs, you are now required to know your customer. You cannot fail to disclose any information related to money laundering and terrorist financing, and you also cannot tip off, okay? All of that is important. And so this is why we want to be a part of these various organizations that, channel information through us. So when laws change, we get the proper updates. When things happen, we know upfront. It's not the police coming, knocking at our institution's door and saying, Ms. Fuller, you're under arrest, right? Okay, and so subscribe. It comes to your email, and just be abreast and aware. And again, if you don't get the opportunity to read it every day, have it there. So when something does happen, when they say, Daniela, write a report on the FATF change in recommendation 50, and you say, who's the FATF? And what did they change and why? It should be in your email already, right? And so, right, pull it right up in all of this. One day somebody showed up to me and they said, oh, our nurse is going to interview me on our blacklisting. What should I say? Okay. And I took our nurse was like 20 minutes away. So here it is. I'm saying, okay, say everything positive about the Bahamas. Say that we're working on this and that. But luckily, the Attorney General office, who I had subscribed to, I remember, I said, the Attorney General office say something. I can't remember. And I pulled that up. I was able to print that up and say, there you go. And that person literally sat there and read off everything with the Attorney General, which was very relevant and applicable. Could you imagine me just at that point trying to figure out where I could get some information from? Okay, so these things come in handy. Okay, and then for your 5 bonus points, we read the story about Bin Laden. I said the only thing that we want to take away is that we want a network as strong as his. He was able to live for those 10 years. He didn't work, and he lived comfortably in a 2-story house with air conditioning, with wives and children. And I always say, if I lost my job today, I called my dear mother on the phone and said, Mom, I need to move home with my 10 children and 5 husbands. I would not live in air condition. She would ask me every day when I leave it. She would buy the newspaper. I definitely couldn't turn on her air conditioner. She'd say, Miss, you have on air conditioner and you don't work? But he lived comfortably, right? And he got insulin every day. You could barely afford medicine when you work in. How do you afford insulin when you are unemployed? Okay, his network was that strong. Okay, and so again, nobody's out to the fish fry, nobody's out to the dock. Nobody cares what you happen to eat. Corporate Bahamas are at these Toastmasters meetings. They're at these clubs. They're at Rotary. They're doing, community service and work. And so this is where you have those water cooler conversations. This is where you get to know who are the executives. This is how you become the executive. Okay, because a lot of times there's a network, and if you're not known, like Daniela is here, and so I keep calling her name. All of us in this room and online, again, we will be qualified at the end of this class, correct? What would make you stand out? Only because I know Daniela's name, because she was the first person at this, at the class. And I remember Miss Cassie from my intro class, but she left an impression. Okay, and so all of us are qualified. I'm not giving them something. I know them. Their CV is up to date, and they're familiar. That's who gets the job. That's normally how it works. So people say, I'm shy. I think it was Miss Colby who said, oh, I'm shy. I can't just go out there and talk to people, right, Miss Colby? Nobody out there. Nobody out there.
You put me on blast like that.
That's why y'all have to turn on your video. Miss Colby don't sleep.
Why you gotta put me on blast like that?
Your name, that's why she's coming up. Your name popping up. Right. So, right, she says she's shy. But again, to be the MLRO or the compliance officer, you have to engage the entire organization. You have to ensure that the entire organization is compliant. And again, you're looking for friends, you're looking for godparents for your children, or somebody to hang out with on Friday night. But you want to be diplomatic and professional, and you have to have the right interpersonal skills so everybody will feel that you are approachable. So no more being shy. And then everybody, oh yes, I know Daniela. She works here or whatever. She's in my club or what have you. I recently applied for a job and they asked me what civic organization was I a part of. Should I have said none? I was like, what? You know, and so all of these things help you in your corporate development. You're doing it for social, you're doing it for your career development. Okay, and each year too at our institutions, I'm sure that's one of the questions they ask. What courses are you going to take? And yeah, what good? So this is a good thing to put on your performance appraisal. I joined Toastmasters. I'm networking. I'm meeting the right people. Okay, and that's how you get it done. And again, my very famous story: when I was at Royal Bank, I had $70,000-$80,000 a year in legal fees because we didn't have internal legal. However, when I developed my network had a lawyer, a doctor, an accountant, a real estate agent in it, and I was the banker. And so whatever information they needed, I shared with them. Whatever information I needed, I went to them. And so I was able to cut down that cost to my company. Because again, lawyers, we know when we call them, they say, hi, let's pull it up in here from you. It's 2:00. And when you hang up, they say it's 4:30. What that mean? You are being charged for however long you take, and sometimes it's $100 an hour, right? And so when I, call Daniela and my legal friend on the phone and just, but sometimes you need assistance, I worked at a company that was closing down, and they said, we're closing down, we're not going to pay for a legal opinion. What was I supposed to do? So sometimes you need help, And when I called the regulator said, get a legal opinion. I said, we're closing. They don't really want to pay for it. Well, you won't get this license relinquished until you get that legal opinion. Okay, so thank God I had my network developer. I can say, hey, it's the last favor I have to call in. But again, when you go to these entities, you don't want to, I'm looking for something. You want to be just as beneficial to them as they are to you. Okay, and everybody has value, and everybody can, share their knowledge and network. Okay, so that's how you get your extra 5%. When the class begins, we normally say, what did we really use? Paper. That's how you get your 10%. And then if you would have attended and you share what your experience was, then that's how you get your extra 5. Okay, and then the exam structure is there already. 1 mandatory question. I already told you what it could be. 50 in multiple choice, and then 4 essays. Okay, so we want to prepare from now. We don't want this to sneak upon us. We don't want any surprises. When we get to that exam, we want to sit comfortably because we have 35% already, and it really, really helps. Okay, we don't want to be sweating and saying, oh, I should do my homework. Oh, I should get that 5%. Okay, and then we have the people, like my exam was last week, and we have the people asking for Miss Bullet cell number. Y'all don't call this institute asking for Miss Bullet cell number, please. I give every possible chance for you to get all the points. You could go into your final exam with the 35%. Don't give my cell number to nobody because they didn't do what they're supposed to do. When they call me after the exam, yeah, don't go Miss Bullet after. I block everybody who's taking the test. I block them. Okay. So good. So we clear. Are there any questions regarding the instructions? No, 70. Yeah, overall passing is 70. Okay. Okay, and so
Now, Ms. Bullet, quick question.
yes, go ahead.
The general insurance and insurance agents and brokers and insurance companies in general have just been added to, compliance and KYC as of September 1st, 2020. And one of the questions that would it be possible to email you questions that may not generally come up in the course, that may not have come up yet, or you may not have, the institute may not have time to dive into yet to really assess? Could I email questions to you on that front if they become relevant?
Okay, yeah, and where are these questions coming from?
So the general, as you know, life insurance and health insurance has always been a part of compliance and KYC and all that kind of stuff. General insurance is not. Like your private insurance, your car insurance, all those kind of things has not been considered a part of the financial institution for the purposes for AML or any of these purposes necessarily. Particularly compliance and KYC. We were just put on this in September 1st of last year. And we are running through exercises now to try and figure out exactly what the government wants out of us information wise, because of course we act in a very different way than a life insurance company would act, and a health insurance company act, and a bank would act. Every year a policy is renewed, that's a new contract. So whereas a bank, when somebody opens up a bank account, that's their bank account for as long as they have the bank account until they close it. Whereas a insurance policy for your car, your house is considered to be a new policy every single year. So technically, where you would have to fill out all of these compliance and KYC forms once for your bank and just keep yourself updated on any additional information. Technically, if you read the act as it stands now, you would have to gather these documents every single year for every single client, for every single policy that they have.
Okay, I don't think it's every single year. Are you required to?
They have made some adoption. They have made some
Yeah.
adoptions.
Yeah, so you
I
would
want to be clear.
you would need to risk rate those clients, right? And once you risk rate them, they may fall into categories like high, medium, or low. If they are medium, you normally review every 2 years. If they are high, then every 3 years. Every year. And if they are low, every 3 years. So you're going to have to put a framework in place that states that's how you assess your clients. And then that would be sufficient. Now, whilst their policy may be renewed every year, that's fine. You could renew the policy. However, if there are no changes, like they didn't move or the passport didn't expire or what have you, then you don't have to make any changes. Okay, so you just have to put a framework in place. You have to normally you need a policy first of all that states exactly what you plan to do, and a good guide is the central bank guidelines. Okay, and so you follow the central bank guidelines, you implement an internal AML policy, and you say our framework consists of risk rating each client, high, medium, or low. And once their documentation does not expire, then there's nothing that you have to do. But if they're risk rated low, you have to do a review. You have to continuously monitor. And in intro, we learned that there are 5 statutory requirements. One is identification. So you must identify, you must know who that client is.
Of course.
Okay, and the next one is record keeping. You must keep the records for 5 years after those policy. I don't know if the Insurance Commission has a specific period, but Central Bank is 5 years and the Securities Commission is 7 years. So then you need to find out if Ms. Bullitt opens a policy today. It expires in 1 year. She does not come back. She says, oh, I want to go to a new insurance company. How long do I have to keep a record for? It's normally 5 years after it closes. Okay? No, 7 is the Securities Commission. I'm not certain what the Insurance Commission is, but again, you could look through the law. Okay, but then you have to also monitor if I continue on with that policy. Am I risk rated high, medium, or low? And there are specific questions that you ask on an account opening form, just like when you go to the bank. You go to the bank and you see what questions that they ask. You have to ensure that, hey, can Ms. Bullitt really afford this 2021 BMW if she is unemployed? You see, so there's a framework that you have to put in place. But to answer your question, yes, you can send me questions because again, from banking, we did it in 2000 and we did it wrong. And we had to redo it. And then we did it wrong again. And they had to give us an extension of an extension till I think almost 2007 or 8. Okay, so don't feel bad about it. So any questions that you have, like you said, you send it to me. And I'll be happy to assist if I can. But again, I will send you to do some research to find out, like, again, what is the statutory requirement for record keeping under the Insurance Commission? Is it 5 years like the central bank, or 7 years, or did they come up with their own
It depends on which
frame?
department you're in. Financial records are kept for 7 years, and all other types of records are kept for 5.
Okay. So that means even if I come and insure my car with you for 1 year, you still have to keep that for 7 years. You have to keep that for 5.
For 5 years. They're fine. Right.
Oh,
now.
for 5. Okay.
Yeah, our internal financial records are 7 years.
Oh, okay.
So your payment, while your information has to be kept for 5 years, your form of payment records that we keep for you would have been kept for 7.
Okay. Yeah. So all that information is important. And again, you need that in an internal policy that is shared with all of the staff, so everybody knows exactly what the policies of the company is. Because there's no one size fits all approach. It's different based on the products and services that you offer. Okay. So send me the questions as you get them, and I'll be happy to help.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so intermediate AML classwork, and again, just so you won't have any surprises, normally the course is for 3 hours until 9. However, we normally take a half an hour break, and everybody normally says we want to end at 8:30. Is that correct? We want to end at 8:30. However, we have classwork, and so we are actually going to end at 8 o'clock, and then you take the 30 minutes to complete your classwork. Okay, and so it's just that at the end of each class, you want to ensure that you are able to answer some of these questions. And again, it's going to help you when it comes to review time and to the final exam, because a lot of these questions require research. And if you do it now or after each chapter, that will assist you with not being so overwhelmed. You will just have to do a review when it comes to the final exam. So each chapter has various questions that you just fill out an answer, and you don't have to hand it in again.
I read.
No. Can we have a cup, Michael? Can we have a coffee? We're gonna give you a coffee. It's sent in the email.
Oh, I didn't get an email from you.
Yeah. I'll send it to you. Okay. And so that's what we want to do. So at 8 o'clock, we want to do our classwork, and then we want to
We hand that in or no?
No, you don't have to hand it in, but you can bring it up in discussion in the following class if there was some difficulty that you had, if you had any issues, or if you have a question, or if you just want to make sure that you're on the right track.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's the classwork. Okay. So periodically, I'll check to make sure that you're doing your classwork. It's very important. And again, all of this is to help, from the feedback that we receive. People said, oh, Miss Bullitt, we never talked about that. We didn't discuss that, or I was so confused. I didn't know how to answer these questions. And so all of this, again, like I say, for the most part, you will see a repeat on the final exam. Or Miss Bullitt, you said this, but I didn't know that's what enhanced due diligence meant. I didn't know I was supposed to talk about debts, so hopefully all of this would help and bring awareness. Okay, so that's the classwork. Well, again, the central bank guidelines used to say a PEP is a PEP 1 year after they left office. However, my view, and it's only Ms. Bullitt's view, is once a PEP's always a PEP. Now, central bank has since removed that from their guidelines, but I found that a lot of institutions still have not removed, risk rated those persons, because they removed it in 2018. And so if you were low risk and you had just been risk rated 2018, 19, 20, 21 is now when you're being risk rated. So I would have audited a bank who said, well, the law just changed in 18 and they were low risk. So, you know, we have 800 clients. We can't just go willy-dilly reviewing everybody. So now that their review period is coming in, the review period is coming up, we're now going to review them as high risk and PEP. Yeah. So again, central bank has said, or the regulators have said, when you write your AML policy, once you document the rationale for your decision, then they'll either accept it or reject it. So I've seen an institution.
So the standard now is 1 year or?
No. The standard is, I mean, to me, once a PEP is always a PEP, because that person is on the campaign trail. That person becomes a consultant. Once you see them talking at those rallies, they are still a PEP.
Right, but what about their,
in my view? But I've seen
family
institutions
members?
who have used the record keeping. They said 5 years after you leave office. So another institution put 10 years, and central bank has accepted both.
So what about family members in connection with PEP?
All of that. So once or the PEP is related to the entire associate, family member, anybody close to that person.
Or what if the PEP has passed away?
Okay, so then again, that's up to your institution and what your regulator accepts. If it's passed away and their family, like Mr. Pinlan, he has been passed away for 20 years. Miss Pinlan became the Governor General. But let's just say she did not become the Governor General. Would you still not rate Michelle and Obi as PEPs?
Well, they all ran for government too.
Okay. So again, it's on a case-by-case basis. So you would have to, again, risk assess them. You would have to see where they are. And all these things are on Google. All these things are on WorldCheck and LexisNexis. So again, this is what it said, entails taking a risk-based approach. You would have done an assessment and written a rationale. My decision is based on he's been dead from 2000 and nobody would have run for office, or he's been dead for 2000. However, at some point, 3 of them ran for office and the wife became Governor General. Yeah. Okay, and then for us who work in the offshore jurisdictions, again, the definition of PEP is different. In Mexico, they say civil servants are PEPs. In Russia, civil servants are PEPs. But are we going that fast? Of course, we don't want the entire business to be high risk, so we don't want to say we have 10 PEPs, And then in these last years, I've seen a lot of craftiness. Head of the Drug Enforcement Unit of Israel reporting to the Prime Minister. Why would the head of the Drug Enforcement Unit report to the Prime Minister? So he wasn't in PEP until he put that little line in that he reports to the Prime Minister. Okay, then you're PEP. Because an association in a country, I just found it very strange. Yeah. So of course we know a lot of persons, they don't want to high risk and they don't want to do the enhanced due diligence. So they try and find very savvy ways to, work around the system. We had another person who said, I'm just a loan officer out of Switzerland, but the government of Morocco has invested $1 million that I must loan out to farmers around the world. Whose money is it? Whose money? No, but it's the government of Morocco, right? So that's a PEP, right? And then in Venezuela, 90% of the country is run by PDVSA, the oil company. And a joint venture with the government is 60% government, 40% individual. So the majority of the shares are owned by the government, right? So when you see these joint ventures, you want to ensure that you categorize them properly. Again, we don't want our business to be seen as high risk because a lot of people won't do business with us. And so we turn a blind eye to these things and we don't want to document it, but what is the proper thing to do? Yeah, so look out for those joint ventures. and look out for these people that are in the military or in associations reporting to the government or to the prime minister. Okay? Okay, good. All right, so we want to talk about chapter 1. Did anybody have the opportunity to read it? Or do we need to read chapter 1?
No, I read it.
Okay, good. Good. Who is that? Who read it? Nikisha?
Yes, ma'am.
I
Okay,
read
so
it.
okay, very
I
good.
read
very
it.
good.
So,
Your goodness, what a shame today. Okay, excellent, very good. Okay, so based on chapter 1, it starts off talking about the FATF and a risk-based approach. And so, what did we walk away, Nikisha? What is the risk-based approach? What is the FATF asking us to do?
Basically, like you was discussing with James, to just understand who we're doing business with and what kind of risk doing business with that person or entity can represent. And so no longer can we put on blinders and do business with anybody, but we really need to understand where the money is coming from, who the people are, and how even doing business with them can affect our reputation as a country. Even if they're clean, just the perception alone may be worthy of assessing.
Okay, very good, very good. And so, of course, we know the FATF came up with 40 recommendations plus 9 special recommendations on terrorism for the persons who said Ms. Bullitt got it wrong on the exam. So 49 recommendations. And the very first recommendation, recommendation 1, countries should assess or identify and assess and understand their money laundering and their terrorist financing risk. So assess the risks and then put controls in place. Okay, we would have touched on this briefly in intro. So basically, they want you to go to your institution and say, do I offer, high risk services? Do I offer business to PEPs? Again, let me start on the country level. Again, the country has to be risk assessed. So out of those 40 recommendations, we were deficient in 22. Okay, and so when they went and they completed a mutual evaluation, they identified the 22 deficient recommendations that we were deficient in, and we had to update them. And so one of the updates included to regularize the not the insurance companies, but the real estate, the accountants, and the lawyers. And so they didn't have a regular
Can anybody hear me, or is the screen frozen, or?
Yeah,
Ms. Bullard offline.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think she
I thought it
froze.
was me. I really thought it was me just now.
I thought it was me too. I was just like, oh.
I got up to look at my internet.
All right, cool. One thing, just me.
You got to repeat herself.
Oh, she gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Karen must have gone off.
Welcome to the Bahamas.
That happened to me once, so I can't laugh.
If that ain't happening to anybody in here, they want to come live where they live.
When the
Karen,
generators be so loud.
Can anybody hear her yet?
No,
Nope, still missing.
still gone.
She knows she's offline.
Any one of the oldest, the previous intro students have a cell number or anything? I looked at the email, but there's only an email address.
I called the institute. They said she'll be back shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Hi guys, sorry about that. The internet just dropped and we had to sign back in. Are we all still there?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay, so do we get the whole gist of what recommendation want to say? Assess your risk and understand money laundering and terrorist financing risk, and then put controls in place. So countries had to do that first. And what we saw is that the Bahamas risk rating has not been updated since 250 and 216. And before 250, as we know, all these anti-money laundering laws came out in 2000. Of course, the Bahamas used the staggered approach to, put the laws in place because of course we see that all of this causes the, industry to contract. So we lost a lot of banks, a lot of trust companies and what have you. And so we used the staggered approach. And in 2017, they came in, they completed a mutual evaluation, and so we had to get all of the laws up to place. So again, the 40 recommendations, so Bahamian laws were, very deficient in regards to what the 40 recommendations had stated. And so those 22 areas or those 22 recommendations had to be updated. So of course, one of the areas was this risk assessment. And so whilst it was on the books before, it was never enforced. And so in terms of what it meant to put this risk assessment in place, the regulators established analytics departments because they now had to build a relationship, just how in the banks we were required to know our clients, the regulators were required to know who their clients were. So who are these people at the Scotia Bank? What are their products and their services? Who is Fidelity? Who is Royal Bank? And so again, they had to beef up their staff. And again, all of this regulation is very expensive and it takes a lot of time. And then we're on a learning curve because a lot of times people don't even believe we have to do this. Again, look at the credit unions. They would have operated for the last 30 years. and they did not have to have a compliance officer or a MLRO. However, when they was regulated by the central bank, all of that changed. And so you would have seen in the papers almost every credit union trying to hire a compliance officer. And in most cases, they didn't even hire a compliance officer. They just took a person who was there for the longest. Oh, Miss Bullet, you've been here for 30 years, it's you. And then Miss Bullet said, but I don't know anything about compliance. So what did they do? Call the institute, you'll have a compliance class. Okay, Miss Bullet, now you have to go to class and learn. So imagine that person. And that happened to a lot of persons, okay? Not only in the credit unions, but the law firms. Then I would imagine Mr. Knowles. That's why you're here, because of the new requirements. Is Mr. Knowles still there? But what I saw as well as when the lawyers and the real estate agents and the accountants, I saw the classes fill up with lawyers. I saw the classes fill up with accountants. Again, because there's a cost involved. You have to pay minimum $50,000 to in a salary. Then you have to develop a department. Then you need systems to be able to carry out all these assessments. Then you need persons in place. So there's a lot of money involved in establishing a compliance department, and compliance normally does not make any money for the business. Okay, what compliance does is we stop from getting fines, because of course central bank and all the other regulators, they have these administrative policies, and we are seeing a lot of banks being charged these very very large fines around the world, not so much in the Bahamas, but around the world. We see 1.9 billion and this billion and that billion. And so we prevent, that's the only way, we save the organization by preventing, some of these fines by ensuring that the organization remains compliant. But of course, a lot of persons, they look at sales and that's where they want to invest all their money. Okay?
I mean, compliance might not make money on the front end, but you definitely prevent loss
on the back end. Correct. But of course, when they're looking at the bottom line, they're looking at sales. How do we generate revenue? How do we make money for the business? These laws are too cumbersome. This will stop us from doing business. This will stop us. And so a lot of people see compliance like as a barrier to even making money. Okay, and so again, this is why we have to educate everybody to ensure that everybody is on the same page. Okay, and so what we did in the Bahamas is the FTRA, the Financial Transaction Reporting Act, Section 5, we put that in place, that a risk assessment must be done by all financial and non-financial organizations. Okay, and so not only did we put it in place, because before we had put laws in place, but we did not have the staff, we did not have the analytics department, we did not have the knowledge to even carry out any of these 40 recommendations. So again, not only did the Bahamas update the law, they put persons in place to ensure that it's enforced and it's carried out. Okay, so gone are the days when we can just write a lot of paper and hope that nobody will read it, or this is a big thick book. So again, that will, most people don't like to read, or they have difficulty reading. So therefore that will, hopefully that'll, change their mind from reading it. So gone are the days. Everything is now being enforced, and you would see that there's a hands-on relationship being built with each organization. Before, a central bank would, because I was in banking, would send a request and I would reply 3 months later, and they would never reply that they even received it. Now, what they did in 2018, they sent out surveys. And in those surveys, they asked various questions where they asked, do you have a policy for this? Do you have a policy for that? How do you handle thefts? What is your policy on record keeping? What is your policy on opening accounts? And of course, they asked me, yes, do you have a policy? And of course, I said, yes, this is a bank. I can't say no. And in some cases, we didn't have policies. And when I sent that report, they said, these surveys are very important because this is how we are going to gather our national risk assessment. Okay? And our national risk assessment, I think before I got cut off, I was saying that the last time we had completed it was 2015 and 2016. Again, it was very, very deficient. And they accepted it back then, but now in the era of enforcement, they wanted, what does the insurance industry say? What does everybody under the compliance commission say? What do the credit union say? And how could we find out if they were not even properly regulated? So the first step was to get them properly regulated and then administer the surveys. And so you would have seen that the surveys came out and they said if you didn't submit it by a certain date, they would fine you. Because the survey was 200 questions. Well, it didn't have time to do that, but when they attached that little fine to it, that it's like, oh, Miss Bullet had to do it. And when they called me on the phone and said, Miss Bullet, your survey is faster, I was like, really? Central Bank calling me. And when I completed it and I said, yes, we do have all these things, they called me back and said, can we have a copy of each one? But this is the first time ever. This is the first time ever. I normally got away saying, oh, yes. And then it took me months to, collect all the deliverables because a lot of things were not in place. Okay. And they were on us. Okay. And then they threatened us with fines. Okay. And so that's the era that we're in right now. Okay. And it's very important because I always tell the story too that we wanted to bring our trading desk from Switzerland, and we pay Switzerland $100,000 in fees for our trading desk. And one of the criteria was that we open up a U.S. account, like within Morgan Stanley or Wells Fargo. So we went to New York and tried to open up an account. And they told us that they don't do business with high-risk jurisdictions. And we said, we're not high risk. In 2015, 16, when we completed our country risk rating, we were medium, we're not high. And they said, well, this is 2020. Tell us, show us now. We don't have a rating because our 40 recommendations were so deficient. We needed all the industries to come together, and we had to find a way to enforce that they gave us this information, that they put these controls in place, that they spent this money, right? And so that's how you get all the information for the country rating. The insurance commission has the reply. The banks have the reply. The real estates, the accountants, and the lawyers have the reply. The credit unions have the reply. At the time when we did that one, the gaming board, what do you call it? The web shops weren't even legal as yet. Okay, so a lot of information didn't come from them, and so they gave us a rating based on that, and then they said, no, you have to get those areas regulated, and so you can enforce that. Hey, if you don't send us in this information, you don't have a license. Okay, or we give you a fine and then we revoke your license because you can't be a part of the industry. And so, of course, that took years. And of course, those industries are still on a learning curve. Okay, and yes, it has to be done. And back in 2000, when it was the banks, we didn't believe we had to do this either. We didn't believe we had to get a passport copy and a proof of address and all of this from our clients. And then what we did is we said, okay, put all the A's together. We went out to everybody who had last EMA and we said, bring in your passport. And we got a file and we stuck all the A's together. And Central Bank came up and said, no, it was wrong. Do it over. Then we found out we had to do it individually. So I can imagine now with Mr. Norris is going through what we did back in 2000, what the law firms are going through, with the accountants and the real estate. Why is this necessary? And then the gaming board had just gone through it. Or the various web shops.
The problem we have with insurance is that most of the time, some countries take it off. I mean, they put us in just like to do these things, and then years later we come off in some countries.
When you say come off, what do you mean?
Meaning that they don't make it a requirement. Like Jamaica was one of the countries that petitioned to the Financial Task Force to not have general insurance apply, but it definitely had to apply to life and health insurance because they consider it such a low risk industry because it's so hard to actually funnel money through the industry that they said they could take that you could remove it. So Jamaica was one prime example that we've been using for years to show that it wasn't something that made in the long-term sense to apply to general insurance, but then in these new sets of the new bouts of negotiations with different agencies, they said that we had to do it.
Okay. Okay. And again, you know, in various reports, we have been seeing that like as non-compliant, and again, it's twofold because, you know, on one hand, you know, Peter Turing Press had gone out to the FATF and said the more, you know, regulations we put in place, the more you ask us for. It seems like we can never be compliant. And then it's not only the FATF, there's the European Union, there are various international bodies that, you know, continuously blacklist us. So yeah, across the board, you know, we were deficient in 22, but it also says right here in the book that there were 31 nations that were deficient. And I have another book that tells you, I think Switzerland was deficient in 26, or, you know, so there has been some, you know, we have not done everything that we were supposed to do, but for a very long time, it has been like the Bahamas has been treated a bit unfairly in regards to, you know, these regulations and how we are continuously blacklisted, and how, you know, countries just like Cayman, if you look at Cayman, again, Cayman is still a British territory. A lot of things they don't even have, you know, it's not applicable to them, and they're not blacklisted because of it. So it just really depends on who you are. But on both sides, you know, the PLP and the FNM, they feel that we are the competition, you know, they harp on our secrecy laws. Again, when they brought out CRS and FACA, a lot of persons, you know, closed out their account and they repatriated their money home. So I guess it just depends on how your jurisdiction is seen. Are you seen as their competitor? And that's why it was important for us to get a seat at the table. It was important that our Attorney General, he is now the chairman, and now when decisions are made, he can advocate, because we have complained that, you know, we suffer reputational risk when they blacklist us. They promise to advise us before they blacklist us. They were supposed to come in May 2020, but because of the pandemic, they couldn't come, and they blacklisted us without letting us know. And so that's when the Attorney General had to say, but wait, you promised to advise us first and give us an opportunity, because when we were blacklisted in 2018, it was a mistake. Their technical team is the one who blacklists, and somebody else, they have an administrative team and then a technical team. We had met a deadline for CRS and FACA in December. Send the information to their administrative team. Their administrative team did not let their technical team know, and subsequently we were blacklisted. Okay, and so this causes a problem. Again, this is why when we went to try and open that account, we were told we don't do business with high-risk jurisdictions. Okay, and then we cannot even prove that we are not high risk, because the last time the country did the risk rating was in 2015, 2016. Okay, and so all these industries, you know, had to get regulated. They had to put the controls in place. They had to hire the staff, and now the staff has to be trained to see the severity of how this, you know, the net effect, or how it affects the country. Okay, and then I talked about a lot of, you know, we don't want to be overall risk rated as high risk. And I think I have on this. Let me see if I can share the screen. I don't know if everything went off. I had pulled up the Basel Committee, and these are the various indicators on how you know, how they overall, how they risk rate you. So again, you know, you want to assess your risk, you want to put controls in place, but you want to ensure that you have a methodology and you can explain exactly how you were risk rated. Again, these are the various, you know, they check you on quality of your framework. That's 65%. So it depends on your mutual evaluation report, which is 35%. Tax justice network, 20%. And so all these various percentages, and then they decide if their country is high, medium, or low. And so the governor has put in various initiatives to ensure that when we are risk rated, that we do not come out as high. And we talked about that in intro when we talked about the DARE bill, and we talked about the money services businesses, and ensuring that all of the everybody is regulated and following the policy and procedures. Okay, and so you want to get, when those surveys come out, even though you may be new and saying that, hey, this is the first time we've done this, the country is depending on it. Okay, because they're not taking it easy. For some reason, the Bahamas, we always get hit very, very hard when it comes to blacklisting. And again, persons will not do business with a blacklisted country. You will see more banks exit if the country is, risk rated as high.
Ms. Bullard, oh, sorry.
Sorry, you said yeah. So a lot of offshore banks exited because with private banking, there are a lot of fees involved, and so interest rates went out the door years ago. And so think about it: if you have $100 million, it was cheaper to bring the money to the Bahamas and pay our fees, which would have probably been 10% of the 100 million, rather than to keep it in your country and pay 30 or 40% tax. Now we signed on to the T's for CRS and FACA. That means wherever you are in the world, you still have to pay your country. So they say, I might as well keep my money home. And so again, when you see everybody repatriating their money back to their country, then the private banking closed out. There was no need. Now, other people have like businesses and trusts, or they don't want their family to know they have money, and they still find it beneficial to, or it's cheaper still to do business with us. But, so every so often they find another way to make it easier. And so that's why you see it's just not worth it to have your money across the world anymore. Okay, somebody else had a question?
No, I was just reading the CFATF's 2018 update, and we got a progress update, but as far as recommendation 1, we moved from partially compliant to largely compliant, so still not compliant in the full sense.
Okay, well, I don't think we'll be largely compliant until the risk assessment is completely finished. And I don't know if we would have listened to, I think it was Chester Cooper who stood up in the House of Assembly, and he complained about, even though they weren't able to come in May of 2020, persons were able to have like a teleconference, and he had lashed out against the government for not requesting a teleconference. And so the government then came back and said that, yes, we did request the teleconference, and they did not respond to us.
Hello?
However, yes. Hi. No, somebody said something, no? Okay, yeah, so he had lashed out against the government for not getting a teleconference, but yeah, they said they requested and didn't get a response, and they sent an update saying that they expect the overall risk rating, now that they have all the sectors regulated and everybody submitting their various surveys, they don't have Mr. Knows them, or they're advocating for them not to have to do it. Right, Mr. Noah? So that's perhaps why Jamaica was approved already. We need to get off these lists first, or the threat of being blacklisted, and then perhaps they will look at it closely and say, okay, Mr. Knows, y'all don't have to do it no more. So in the interim, y'all need to do it.
Man, y'all causing me plenty more work just because y'all ain't doing what y'all supposed to do. That
yes, Mr. Knows, we had the plenty work from 2000. We had the plenty work for 2000. We understand it. We know it's costly, and you probably don't even
y'all do that.
have the staff.
Time I ain't banking.
Yeah, so everybody,
no, we understand,
everybody is regulated. Everybody is regulated now, and now you just have to compile all that information. Could you imagine the person at the central bank? I think they created a committee to compile now all this information to put into the risk assessment, and they promised that it will be finished in March of 2021, and we are in March right now. And so you can look online for the update from the government on that. And they promised that it should be completely finalized and sent to the FATF, and so then you would see that we would move from largely compliant to compliant, because that means it's actually done.
But Mrs. Bullard, the thing is, I have a problem with this is
They created a committee. I can't say that the central bank is responsible, because every industry has a part to play in it and to report their information. It's the country as a whole.
right.
Right?
That's my problem. And I agree with Peter Turnquest and what Chester Cooper is saying here. It seems like every time we meet some kind of standard, they want to add a step to this to pull us back. So for instance, and I'm not saying that the insurance industry, general insurance should or should not be a part of the whole group of financial institutions, and as far as compliance and all the rest of it. But at the same time, now you have an industry that was not involved in this process from 7, 8, 10, 20 years ago. It's just going to set you back now.
But y'all should have been involved from 10 years ago.
Yeah, but we weren't. But now they've decided that we are. But I just feel like they did it to try and set things. I almost feel like they did it just to try and set things back again, because now it's going to take us a number of years to get caught up.
I don't think that they did it to set you all back, because what is happening is that you have a lot of persons doing money laundering through various vehicles. Insurance has now become a part of it.
Well, let's put it this way, in the sense of when you talk about money laundering through vehicles, for instance, it's not like somebody could just say, okay, I put this policy in place and then I set the car on fire. You actually have an event that occurs that activates the policy on the claims end. What then happens is that in and of itself, a claims industry has to investigate whether or not that is a valid claim, whether or not that person, there was arson involved. There's many investigative standards that go into actually paying the claim in and of itself. The general insurance companies themselves are responsible on a wider range, not just to local insurers, but to reinsurers globally, to complete these type of investigations. In and of itself is almost self-regulating to the terms of which they now want us to do it on the front end. So it almost makes it impossible. When I say impossible in the sense that it's very unlikely on a large scale that somebody's going to be able to get away with that kind of fraud without getting caught and getting put in prison. Because
but Mr. Notes, isn't there a lot of fraud surrounding general insurance? And there are a lot of people just running and making claims, false claims, trying to claim. Isn't that a
we
big
deny those claims.
But you're saying you deny them, but have you brought anybody before the court?
No.
What is the whole thing is that's money laundering. Fraud is one of the 21
when they commit fraud in any insurance
that's
company,
money laundering. When you commit
No,
fraud,
I'm
you're
trying
not
to say,
bringing
but they are-
anybody before the courts, right?
Yeah, they are brought before. When we can prove fraud, we do 100% bring them before the courts.
But Ms. Butler, some are not even committing the fraud part. They're simply doing first look. Whereas they purchase these large insurance and then decide, well, I'm not going to bother with it anymore. Just before it expires, they want the money back. Or they say, well, you could pay it out into this person's name. That's money laundering. And that's where the insurance companies now have been asked to be mandated or regulated. My five.
Okay, and then in the very popular case with oh Lord, what's her name? What's the politician? Alma Curry, Chase Curry, and her son. The Marias Curry, I think, bought a 2020 BMW.
Campbell.
Yeah, Campbell.
Alma Campbell.
Oh, Alma Campbell, sorry, yeah. Yeah, he bought a 2020 BMW. I'm sure that was licensed and insured with the proceeds of crime. So it is everybody's business. I mean, it shouldn't be find out. I mean, to some extent, could he afford this? He flies around in a private jet that has insurance. Shouldn't this been a red flag to somebody?
Excuse me, Ms. Bullard.
Go ahead.
Question on that point. So now it comes down to a fact of judging as the insurer.
No, it's not judging. It's ensuring. It's ensuring that it's within your means.
So basically, in
You
order
have
to
to
ensure,
verify the source of income.
Source of wealth and source
so
of funds.
You have
So
to verify.
You have to
It
verify
has to be
it.
verified.
So
You don't judge
if I'm
anybody.
if I'm insuring my Rolls Royce for the sake of this discussion, then what documentation? Basically, I have to provide you a job letter to tell you that this is how much money I make.
Correct. Or you
Oh.
shouldn't be able to ensure that. How else will we combat this money laundering problem that we have? How else will we ensure that everybody's brought before the court?
Miss Bullet, that's a very interesting one because, to be honest with you, it seems as though every aspect of your life, your insurer for most of your life knows your assets because he has to insure them, but he never really knew how much money or what's your net worth or how you get your money.
Okay, but
and
yeah,
I think a lot of
insurer is
behavior
required to know his customer. And
That is
again,
true.
the law does
Yeah.
permit where organization A has verified you, organization B does not have to verify you. So perhaps you would have gotten a car loan and he can ask for a reference letter from the bank that gave you the car loan, and that would be sufficient, not that you would need to give a job letter. So
Okay.
again, it just depends on what policy that they put in place. A lot of people don't use the first organization because it's very difficult to get information. Like if something does happen, like with Mr. Curry now, they go to the insurance company and say, bring a copy of your passport. They say, oh, we got a letter from the Scotiabank that verified it. Now they have to go down to the Scotiabank to go get that piece, that passport. And so that is an administrative task. And so that's why each individual company, whilst it's not good customer service and it's making doing business more tedious, each institution decided that, hey, I don't want to be liable, so I am going to get my own KYC. They have the option to use the first organization, but they don't do it.
Hi.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
I have a question.
Thank you.
I have a question. So what you're saying
Wait,
is
1 second. I have a question inside the class.
Sent from the bank, wouldn't that include your KYC? I don't know what documents they send from the bank to the insurance company. So when you go to get a car or get your house insured, they will have your mortgage papers and they will have your loan documents from the bank, right?
Yeah, insurance.
Yeah, don't you have to?
Yeah. That was already covered. This is just general insurance now. All of that has already been covered previously. This is just general insurance having to go and do this now. Yeah. Because again, all of this has come about because of the number of fraud cases or the number of criminal cases attached to these various products and services. What you will find in with your risk assessment, especially when you risk assess your products and services, once you have that under control and you can't eliminate risk, you could mitigate it, you could put controls in place, and you have to be knowledgeable about them. So when these people do infiltrate the system, because they're way smarter than us, these hackers and scammers, that your ducks are in a row and you can explain the controls you had in place. It would have been every time you put the products and services controls in place, they move to somewhere else, something you see to infiltrate. And so car insurance, I mean, it's like one of the last industries. I could tell you, we could probably go and do some research, and there are millions of cases as to where persons use this general insurance, and this is why the need to now put these controls in place. But like, no, right. So I can tell you, there's a lot of fraud, and Miss Knows, like you said, y'all do bring the persons before the courts. But I know I worked at the Royal Bank for 16 years, and more than a lot of staff was brought before the courts, and Royal Bank did not want to go through the reputational risk. And all these other banks, you don't see Scotiabank employee I see some now, CIBC with the technology guy, but that puts out a reputational risk for the institution, and the institution is say too much reputational risk, just let them go free. So all of my colleagues who decided to put 25,000 in the ground or take $165,000 for their wedding. They had that wedding. They sit next to me and they cry whilst I look through all their entries, and they got hauled before the courts, but next day it was let go because the institution is not going to suffer the reputational risk. And I know there's a lot of fraud around general insurance. I don't see anybody being brought before the courts for it to be on TV, every night. And so this is why it's necessary, Mr. News, because once controls are being put in place on one product and service, these people are going to, okay, we can't get it through banking. It's harder to get it through this. It's harder to get through that. So let's look at the next industry. And that's what happens. Okay, so you lucky we've been going through this for 17 years and you just have to do it. You should consider that luck, and you will catch up because we have caught up. And at least you have enough examples. And when we started in 2000, after we did all the work, we were told it was done wrong, do it over, and then do it over, and then do it over. So at least now the foundation has been laid, and a lot of things to us was unbelievable. No, we don't have to do that. That can't be right. That don't make no sense. You know how much money it will cost us to track transactions, and then we realize, yeah, you do have to do it.
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah, so go ahead.
If I have a situation where I say, okay, I want to purchase a particular thing, I really don't want to go to the bank for it. I'm going to ASU and I'm going to save, and then possibly I'll make different deposits on my account once I get my ASU money. And I decided I'll take the money off of my account and I'll go and I will purchase whatever it is that I want to purchase. Let's say this particular thing is $25,000. I placed money in the bank on 4 different occasions for different amounts. So it wasn't a consistent amount where, the bank is aware of the type of business that I do, or I have a business license and, I have a business account. This is my regular account. So they red flagged me. If I just say it's a car, I go and I get my car, and when I get there, they say to me, well, we need information on your source of funds. And I say, well, I get the money from my account. And then they say, well, you need a reference from your bank. And I go to my bank and my bank is like, well, you don't know where the money come from. We red flagged you and we're investigating it, but we can't give you a reference in order for you to have this car insured. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to say I went in an ASU, which is technically illegal to get the money?
Why is it illegal to go in ASU? Who said that?
I say technically.
Why is it technically illegal?
Well, but what I'm saying is, am I supposed to go to my ASU lady and let her say I join her ASU? Is that even acceptable?
You should, first of all, you shouldn't join an ASU if you don't have a contract. That's the first thing.
Right.
You could now.
Is that it holds up in court? But I'm saying, is that something acceptable in terms of KYC?
Yes, people are all the time. If you go outside your profile, you bring in your ASU contract, and then you're not red flagged, and it's simple. Following the rules is very simple sometimes, and people for some reason just like to do it.
But
if you have a contract, that's it, and avoid all those.
Okay, stress. So I'm glad you said that, but you know what that means, right?
But what?
That's the perfect way for me to launder money. I could draft any contract.
Okay, well, the funds have to come from somewhere. Like I say, as we can mitigate risk, we cannot eliminate it. A criminal is a criminal is a criminal. We can't save the world. Okay, what we can do to avoid us going to jail, and because now everybody goes to jail, when they open up your file and they see a ASU contract and it looks legitimate, we have done our part.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't look legitimate, if it's a makeup name or something like that, right? And when something, right? The dollars, right? Right. You can hear them. Go ahead. Can you hear the ladies in the class?
No. What did she say?
Yeah. So again, we would have verified you, and you would have brought in your source of income. So if you're making $210 a week, there's no way you could be in an ASU for $5,000 or $500 a week, right? So again, we will substantiate everything that you would have done, okay? Again, the whole purpose is to have the controls in place and understand what controls you have in place. So people are still going to defraud the system. What stops you from going to jail is that the tools that they use to defraud the system, you substantiate them. She said she made $210 a week, only $50 was in the ASU, that was reasonable. But if she said she made $210 a week and she was putting $500 in the ASU and she didn't have any extra income from anywhere else, then that person who opened that account for you will go to jail along with you. That's just how it works. So people are still going to, when we put controls in place, when the central bank said it was $4,000 cash and you had to verify, then they put $499. When they increased it to 10,000, then they put $999. Now it's 15,000, they put in $14.99. So you know what? They come up with a term for that. That's called smurfing. Okay, and that's why now everybody has to create a profile and you have to verify that customer. And so Miss Bullet, if she says she's making $210 a week, cannot deposit $5,000 a month without being red flagged or questioned. Okay, so people are still going to defraud the system and come up with ways. That's somebody's job. They sit down in a room all day and figure out how to defraud systems.
Excuse me, Ms. Bullet.
Okay, you have to protect yourself. Yes, go ahead, Symphony.
And I think this would be spoke to last class about these ASUs, because even though I didn't miss that monies might have been legitimate funds of supporting this ASU, we don't know whose else's monies would have been propelling this ASU. And so, okay. And so I think that's the reason why they noted that in the future, it's not certain, but these ASU holders would have to come under regulation.
Yeah, so we did talk about that with Miss where is she?
Miss
Hepburn. Yeah, Miss Hepburn. But again, we stagger in that as well. But when you bring that ASU contract and you have Miss Cadet, you're going to world check Miss Cadet, and then you're going to say Symphony Gardner is the ASU holder. We're going to world check her, and then you're going to ask what industry. Do you have a wide variety of persons, or do you have people in a particular industry? And so you will scrutinize it, and perhaps it'll get to a point where, in order for us to accept this ASU funds, I'm sure the ASU holder, because I see people now saying just transfer it from my account. I'm certain they're gonna have to say who are the persons involved, because again, you're holding this money on behalf of a third party, and then you have to list who the third parties are. So if you have 25 people, those 25 persons have to be checked, and that's what we do on the offshore side. When they come with companies and they say the staff of the Royal Bank of Canada, the A signatures and the B signatures, it's 25 or 30 of them. We have to check everyone. And that's why they open up an entire department for business banking or business accounts, because it's way more extensive and there are way more players involved. And that's what we've been doing.
Ms. Bullet, I also saw the same thing being noted for the assessor filing that had to be done. Basically, they didn't, basically any benefactor of that company is now listed before the government.
Correct. And so all of those people will be verified. You're required to identify, verify, and assess. Okay, and again, all of these are controls that you put in place to just mitigate, to control it, so your institution is not susceptible to it, so your staff members don't lose their job, so your bank does not close down. Okay, and again, I love Royal Bank. I always talk about Royal Bank. My institution was, we had this customer with loads of artwork that was stolen. When it was found out, you know, a trust is a legal entity where they say, they send a letter of wishes and they say, Ms. Bullet, I wish that you open up well, they say, I wish that you take instructions from Ms. Albee for this trust. And so I take instructions from Ms. Albee. Ms. Albee say, pay my children's school fees, book my flights to Orlando, rent me a U-Haul and a storage facility in France. So we rent that U-Haul and storage facility in France, and guess what? Stolen art was in there. Okay? And then they bought us 5 of these books that would stick us this book, and they said, this is the artwork that we have in there. And we are familiar with art, right? We know what we doing. And so Amos bullet out the 5, holding it in the document control room. That's all our art. And we see the different sell this art, buy this art, pick this art up from there. We see all these invoices, all related to art. Okay, so why the French government get a subpoena and say they need to go in that storage facility that are under the Royal Bank of Canada? What was in there? The stolen art. Who was implicated? Royal Bank, my office, trust closed down. 33 people went home just because Royal Bank is a Fortune 500 company, and we had 5 different locations here to save the reputational risk, making loads of money. Very profitable trust company. But if we remained open, every day we would have been in Tribune, we'd been in the French news, we would have been all over the TV talking about this case and what the developments of it. So we closed to avoid the reputational risk. Just like that. Okay? So,
Hi, Miss Bullard.
hi.
Hi, sorry to ask this question off topic, but do we have the option to come in to class?
Well, I have 3 persons in class that I'm trying to get online, but we do. If they don't want to go online, we'll be here. So you do have the option to come in.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so risk assessment. So we understand a little bit, and then we understand the net effect. When this risk assessment, it's taken a very long time because we did not have all the recommendations in place. We did not have all the sectors properly regularized, but it's very important that we have now this medium high. Let me see if I could show you. We have this medium high. If we look right here, I think the Bahamas, where are we? Yeah, one that's Haiti. The dot wouldn't even come up. There's somewhere right in there, and you would see that you look at the legend where it tells you what are the high risk countries. So low is the green, and then the red is the high. And again, methodology again is where do we get our information from? This is the Basel Committee. How do they risk rate us? We saw they say we use 65% of your mutual evaluation. If your mutual evaluation saying 22 deficient, you have a little problem. Okay, you need to get up to date. So I can't even put it up. Right there, 6.43. 6.43 is borderline high. Okay, so we will have countries and institutions saying they do not do business with us. Okay, so in our risk ratings, in our institutions, you want to ensure that you understand where did this information come from. Who say the Bahamas medium high, Ms. Bullet? Or the Basel Committee? Okay, how did they determine that we were high risk? Okay, and so go back to your institutions and look at your risk rating and look at the methodology and ensure that you understand, because a lot of times we put these things in place and they make no sense, or we just don't understand how they explain them, and we risk rating people every day. Okay, also support the initiatives, the DARE bill, what is it? Oh, digital currency. We are seen as too cash intensive. That's one of the categories because of the what do you call it? The number houses. So you will see that the Canadian banks, which are way more conservative, say no, we don't open up accounts for the number houses because we don't want to be seen as cash intensive. Now, in my day, we had all the number houses accounts. The law changed, everything was updated in 2018. Now it's too cash intensive, so you can't walk into a Scotia or Royal and open up an account. Okay, the money services businesses, you would have seen that Fidelity, I think, was a part of Western Union. They don't do that anymore. And cash and go and all of those, too cash intensive. Again, overall, it will make the country high risk. So strategically, when the governor, they put out the DARE bill and this digital Bahamian currency, which is not cryptocurrency, is a digital Bahamian currency that we should use. He strategically placed it through the money services businesses with hopes that they will go fully digital and not use so much cash, and that will, help the country as a whole to be less cash intensive. Sorry, and then um, on the security side, the leverage, you could leverage or borrow up to like 500%. And that was very high. So that attracted a lot of people. I don't know if you all saw a lot of broker dealers popping up all around because people now started to, because our leverage was higher, that attracted them to the Bahamas. So now we decreased our leverage and it's still competitive. It's still a little bit higher than Switzerland and the US and other countries. So you will still attract persons. But again, they put that as a criteria. Our leverage is so high, they have to, this rate is so high risk. Okay? And then people perceiving, like when we say Russia, we automatically perceive Russia is high. We automatically perceive Mexico is high. No, Mexico and Russia have the same risk rating as us. But again, the Canadian banks that are more conservative say, oh no, we just don't have an appetite for those type of countries. We don't want to be associated with them. Okay? And then there's corruption perception index. Our CPI index, I think, is 66. Anything below 45 is high risk. So one day, I tell the story all the time. I was sending wires to Madagascar and Russia and somewhere else. And I paid salaries there weekly. And then one week, the correspondent bank said, we don't do business with countries that have a CPI index less than 30. Corruption perception index. Again, that comes from Transparency International. Okay, and then remember I said, so I wasn't able to pay the salaries that week. There was no way around it. It just stopped. The other day, I had a customer that has a house in Spanish Wells that we pay their insurance for. They had the bombings in Lebanon. Lebanon spoke out against, he accused Netanyahu in Israel of doing the bombings, and the US sent out sanctions on Lebanon. I could not pay a house insurance in Spanish Wells because that person was born in Lebanon. They had dropped it. So what does that mean? That money is stuck in the Bahamas, and he would have to get a special something to send it out, or just there's no use for the account because we paid all the bills for the house in Spanish Wells. He used to do it as an Airbnb and rent it out, and so we would pay the maintenance person. If somebody rented it out, we would, send food and hire a maid and do all sorts of stuff. None of it could be done because the person was born in Lebanon. Okay, so that's the net effect. Okay, so that's why we have to be so careful. And again, I think in the intro I said after the hurricanes in Puerto Rico, a U.S. island that did not get support. Everybody was talking about Hubert Minnis and saying, oh, he got loans and it was a, fake and a scam and what have you. But as a prime minister, you have to look at corruption perception. Abaco and Freeport had been blown away, just like in Puerto Rico after Maria. After Maria, all the wires from Puerto Rico stopped. You looked at their CPI index, they used to have 65. They was just standing in the balance. And you had to call around and ask, did something happen with Puerto Rico? Wires are just stopped. Okay, and we will see that all of the wires, when we get to chapter 2, go through the Fed in the US. And they have strategically placed it that way. So when they offer sanctions and what have you, they get the word right away and it's just stop. And then what do you tell your client? The client does not need to have an account anymore if they can't send wires or if they can't do any transactions. Okay, so all of this is the net effect. Okay, so you want to be aware of the international bodies. The FATF, we know who they are now with the 40 recommendations. We understand their roles. We know the IMF. We know who else is it? The United Nations, the UN.
OECD.
We would have covered a little bit in intro, the FATF and its task. That's a very popular question that's always asked. And so again, this goes on to talk about more of the tasks that they do, how they analyze money laundering, terrorist financing, and other threats to the integrity of the financial system. Of course, you know, the CFATF, there are 7 or 8 bodies around the world, and the Bahamas is a part of the CFATF. And on page 8, you see the different, there's one for Asia, there's the Caribbean, and now we can proudly say that Carl Bethel is the chairman. Of course, that's going to be one of the multiple choice questions, right? Carl Bethel, our very own, is the chairman of the CFATF. So we now have a seat at the table, and hopefully, you know, we'll see a little bit more fairness when it comes to the Bahamas, in terms of their blacklisting us. Definitely, I don't think he will know if it ever comes up for us to be blacklisted. But they promote full and effective implementation of the FATF recommendations by all countries through global network of FATF style regional bodies. And again, we see the one for Asia, the one for Eastern and Southern Africa, and one for Latin America. They assist jurisdictions in implementing financial provisions of the United Nations Security Council resolutions on proliferation, assessing the degree of implementation and effectiveness of the measures in accordance with the FATF mutual evaluation. And again, our mutual evaluation was in 2017. I think if we would have gone through that, if we did intro, you can let me know if we need to look at that, because I think the first question asks us which lists some of the mutual evaluations that we would have been deficient in. Let me see. So, yeah. Okay, let me just pull that out. Yeah, we're sharing. Okay, share. Okay, and so we would have gotten this report in intro, just again to familiarize ourselves with it, and you will see where they would have listed all of the recommendations. And again, you know, terrorism was a big thing, and sanctions, and they tell you exactly which was compliant or non-compliant. Of course, we just discussed the risk assessment. We know that. We discussed the non-financial entities like the real estates, and they call it the DNFMBPs, the non-financial real estate, the law firms, and the accounting firms. We all know that they were not fully compliant and regulated. So again, they will assist. Now, in their assistance, they was coming in to find out, you know, after the mutual evaluation, we had to give an action plan. And so we repealed and replaced most of our laws in 2018. And then subsequently, like the NPOs, had to be regulated as well. And we see that in the papers, we had talked about that, I think, in intro as well, where the nonprofit organizations were not properly regularized. And we talked about the net effect with the Bishop Lawrence role. You know, he is out there, it's a pandemic, he is out there on the Wednesdays feeding the people, but he was not properly regulated and registered with the Registrar General. And of course, he may not be you know, business savvy, you know, but he is very good at feeding the people. So, you know, there was a $10,000 fine for feeding those people if you were not registered with the Registrar General, and they had certain dates that they had to meet by. Okay, so right, right. We didn't talk about this in intro. Yeah. So in the next chapter, we'll get to that. Yeah, it was a $10,000 fine, and even the banks put ads in the papers saying that if we cannot, if you do not come in and register, and let us verify your account, we have to close out your account. But let's just think about it on the net side. If somebody showed up to Bishop Lawrence Road, a terrorist, and say, listen, I'm going to give you $50,000 to help you feed the people, would he be savvy enough to say it's a terrorist, or would he just be happy for the donation? Right. So you see the risk, right? And of course, we read all over the terrorist financing. When we did the homework, we saw that they use charities, they use all sorts of people who are vulnerable and who are in need. Yeah, he could give him the $50,000, but this might be Bin Laden cousin. Okay, and so that was the importance to ensure that everybody who is carrying out these services, they understand the risk that they're susceptible to. Okay, so we understand. Say, oh Lord, you can't shut down Bishop. So much people don't eat on a Wednesday, but he had to, because he had to be educated on, if somebody does come and give you this money, well, it has to be verified. When you deposit it to the account, you have to find out who their name, and sometimes people want to be anonymous. What about that? Okay, but again, they come in, they want to assist you, so they was coming in, but the pandemic came, and so because one part of their checks, it's just like how the Central Bank Securities Commission, all the regulars work together, the CFATF and the IMF and all these other regulatory bodies, they work together, and so the EU was pushing the agenda on taxes. Again, it's cheaper to send my money to the Bahamas than to live in my country and pay this 30 to 40% tax, right? So I put it in offshore jurisdiction, and so I could evade paying my country that tax, but I still live in my country. And so the EU, after Peter Turnquest had complained that no matter what we do, put in place, they trying to wipe us out this little competition. Then they said, okay, we won't blacklist you anymore. France will blacklist you. The EU will blacklist you, like the separate countries will blacklist you. But again, the same players, the president of France is on the board, the president of the EU is there, the president of Germany. And so this is why it was so important for us to have that representation. So when the call came down to blacklisters, cut that whole no and say, oh no, the Bahamas system, this, you can't just blacklist us. Okay, because that's exactly what's happening in France, in Germany, in Spain, because they have as much deficiencies as us. 31 countries had deficiencies, a vast amount of deficiencies, but of course, only our own in the limelight, right? So that's what their job is. They couldn't come in, and so they were concerned about the FACA and CRS, and they wanted FATF to confront them that the action plan was in place and working effectively. They weren't able to come in because of the pandemic, and then they blacklisted us. But of course, then they did they asked for the teleconference, they didn't respond. So then the government put out a statement saying that we'll have this updated by then. This is where we are, and we're waiting for them to respond for the teleconference. Okay. So again, all of that is out of this mutual evaluation. So you would just look at it. You pick three, like I said, the terrorists, the NPOs, any of them are in there, and you would just write an overview of exactly what happened and what was done and why we were not complying. That's the mutual evaluation right there. Okay, so it says each assessment takes 1 year to complete. The team is made up of 4 to 6 experts and 2 members of the secretariat members. A draft report is prepared which evaluates a country's effectiveness with implementing the 40 recommendations. Member countries report to the FATF 2 years after their evaluation. So of course we see our evaluation was in 2017, and so the bulk of the laws were repealed and replaced in 2018, and so by 2019 everything was up and running, or again we would have been blacklisted. And you see, in 2011, the FATF identified 31 jurisdictions with strategic deficiencies. So not only us, but we want to, now that we have that representation, we should not be hit so hard, and we can avoid that reputational risk of being blacklisted in countries and clients saying they don't want to do business with us because they're afraid our money might get frozen or something may happen. Okay. Um, the IMF, again, the International Monetary Fund, um, they coordinate the activities relating to evaluations and assessments. Again, the IMF came in 2018 and we talked about that, how they helped us with, they insisted that we update our disaster relief plan so we know who they are. And luckily we did it. And in time for Dorian, and that saved us. And again, the regulator again is normally seen in a negative light. So that was a possible time and they were seeing in a positive light that and they helped us. The UN, the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, was set up in 1997 to implement the Crime Prevention and Criminal Justice Program and the United Nations Internal Drug Control Program. It goes on to talk about psychotropic drugs, United Nations Convention Against Trafficking, Narcotics, and Psychotropic Substances. Anybody know what psychotropic substances are? No, that's those opioids.
Prescription, yeah, prescription pills.
Prescription drugs, and like there was this opioid crisis. So again, all these things happen in different countries, and they may not be a problem for us now. At least the awareness is not there. But hopefully, when you would read and do the overview, normally it ties the Bahamas in. Do we have this problem? And last year we did human trafficking and kidnapping, and for most of the class person saying, oh no, we don't have that problem. And then Wikipedia stated that we were one of the top countries. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully you'll do some research and find out, okay? So we want to ensure that, controls are in place before these things come at us. And again, like I said, all of these are considered the international bodies. Again, the Basel Committee. And of course, we know that's who does the country risk rating. And then Transparency International, again, they have various categories where they calculate a country's risk rating on. And those categories are the methodology. So you want to understand methodology because when you get in your institution, methodology, you have to be able to explain how you risk rate these persons. And you want to ensure that it's updated, because these ratings change each year. Our rating would have been the same since 2015, 16. But if we decide that, hey, I gotta check that in 3 years, our new risk rating is going to come out. Supposedly, if they send the information March 2021, let's give them until March 2022. I don't know how fast they'll work in getting a rating, but of course, they've been waiting a very long time. Okay, so we got to get that information out. Okay, and then United Nations Suppression of Terrorist Financing, this convention, which came into force in 2002, requires parties to take steps to prevent and counteract the financing of terrorism, whether directly or indirectly through groups claiming to have charitable, social, or cultural goals. The convention also seeks to have countries to have civil, criminal, or administrative liability for those who finance terrorism and provides for the identification, freezing, and seizure of funds allocated to terrorist activities. So again, with all the laws, these are the international bodies. So not only the 40 recommendations, but what the Basel Committee says, what the IMS says, what the Wolfsburg Association says, all of these compile to make Bahamian law. And so when these bodies come in, they check, are your laws sufficient to hold up in court to bring these people before the courts? Are they sufficient? And remember, like I said, we only had Michelle, and we definitely only had in Michelle for the 40 recommendation. Some parts with the Wolfsburg principles, we had no choice. Internationally, how all the wires are running through the Fed, they automatically said, listen, send the person's name and address, or we can't send that wire.
Ms.
So
Bullard,
we had no choice but to get that information to get our wire set. Go ahead.
sorry, I do have a question in relation to these interagency cohesiveness, I guess is what we'll call it at this stage. when you're speaking about the IMF, the FATF and United Nations and everything else, who at the end of the day really has the overriding authority to regulate, I guess would be the word, or to, I guess, put whatever recommendations they want down? Is it still the Financial Action Task Force, or is it the International Monetary Fund? Because it seems like
It's all of them. It's all of
to
them
me
combined.
it seems like to me that International Monetary Fund is basically telling everybody, we're not going to give you any more money unless you're in compliance with all of these things. So it really seems to me that the International Monetary Fund is the one that seems to be in control.
No, so all of them are international bodies that work hand in hand. Like the FATF is out of the OECD, like it's a division. Okay, so they all work together and they have their various standards. They tried to put everything in the 40 recommendations, but that didn't work. And so that's where you have the IMF saying, these are our rules that you have to follow. The World Health Association, the UN, each body deals with, different international standards that they want countries to adapt. Okay, and you will see that through their mutual evaluation, just like how central bank is coordinating with the Securities Commission, the Insurance Commission, and the Gaming Board, they're bringing a representative for each of them to ensure that, all the entire industry is compliant. That's the same thing with the FATF and the IMF, Basel Committee, all of them have their representative, and they check. They each have a portion to check to ensure that the industry is compliant to their regulations, that each country has these laws in place.
Right, but shouldn't there be some form of centralization so that we know exactly
right? So
that somebody can't come out of nowhere and say, okay, well, y'all are compliant today, but UN is now saying you're not compliant, so now you're not compliant. Or the IMF.
Yeah, but there is some centralization because again, it's based on how your country is risk rated. So again, if you're risk rated high risk, you're monitored annually. And in that monitoring, they do a complete review on your industries, just like you would treat a customer. High risk, you monitor them yearly and you complete a client review and you say yes, no, what have you, different categories, each person has their side, and then you sign off at the end. Somebody is going to deliver the message whether that person is compliant or not, or whether we recommend that account is closed. It's the same way. Okay, if you're medium, it's every 2 years. If you're high, it's every year, and if you're low, it's every 3 years. So, and again, the risk rating and all of this information is only as good as today. Because Ms. Bullet, right after this class, could commit fraud. Right? I could be coming to you for a policy tomorrow on my 2021 BMW. And because your institution is just starting, you just happy for that business. And there's foolishness what they asking for anyway, Ms. Bullet. So let me give you this insurance right away. Okay, so that's why all the sectors have to be involved. So they call it recommendations, but there are swift penalties if you do not abide by their laws. So each country has to put it into law. And that's what they did. They reviewed the law and said, hey, please. We even know Lucille and Wayne Monroe. They have been these cases of a technicality. And for many years, we saw that, they felt that we were law-abiding citizens and nobody was being brought before the court. And money laundering was not a predicate crime. So they were charging people with fraud and stealing by reason of employment and what have you. And so now, since 2018, you see almost everybody is fraud and money laundering, stealing by reason of employment and money laundering. Okay, so we see the change. It's slow. And then the Attorney General announced that we have brought 84 persons before the court. From 2000? From 2000, only 80 good, and for the first time we saw politicians being brought before the court. Okay, so we are being internationally watched. Okay, but it's here and it has to be done. Okay, and so you would see that each institution had to complete their risk assessment, and both if you were duly, because I was working at an institution that was duly regulated by the security, we had a securities arm, so you had the Securities Commission and the central bank as a regulator, and you saw those notices just coming out in 2019. The risk assessment was being enforced for the first time. We didn't know what to do. Deloitte Touche charged us $80,000 to do it on our behalf. So they said, well, y'all wouldn't be getting no bonus. If we paid Deloitte Touche, so y'all better do this yourself. And we said, we don't know what to do. And they had like 4 industry briefings. And then Parker got involved and said, y'all can, Australia has done it, and they were successful. And the governor, the central bank, not governor, Luttrell, inspector said, go copy what Australia do. And they got penalties after penalties after penalties for doing it wrong. So, we had to tailor it to our own business. And it was June 22nd. And if you didn't submit the AML risk assessment by June 22nd, you got charged $5,000 a day. And if then there was an enterprise-wide risk assessment due, meaning the credit department had to assess their risk, HR had to assess their risk, finance had to assess their risk, the entire organization, and then send it on to risk. And they felt that, oh, compliance should do this fully. I said, but I don't know anything about credit. I can't do you have to work with me. So that was a learning curve and a fight. And I had to tell them, listen, y'all don't want no bonus. In fact, some of y'all even get no pay. And we have persons at the credit union, because again, the credit union had just been regularized and say, man, they just regulate us. We ain't got to do all these things. They just didn't believe they had to do it. That compliance officer went home, because they are still today getting charged mostly $5,000. Okay, a day. Okay, so that's where we are with enforcement. So, like I said, gone are the days. So no longer can we take these jobs and we're not qualified. Okay, I told y'all to watch Dirty Money in intro. Did we watch that? With the HSBC? That's very relevant too. So before you write this paper, write that one, because the HSBC case was on drug trafficking. And it's an eye opener, and Dirty Money, it's on Netflix. And there's a case with HSBC.
Oh yeah, I watched that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, boy.
They did not create
You want
awareness for you, Mr. Rose?
You want to put that in the paper?
You could.
Oh
You could.
Lord of mercy, you know what that is?
I want y'all to be aware. So after you would
watch it?
Cases, yes, I did. I'm telling y'all to watch it. Because so all of that is applicable. Because you want to make sure that you are not caught up in these cases. Some of those people were innocent. And then look who they hired as compliance. Gave somebody an office offshore with no computer system, not the relevant technology that they needed, and hired a entry-level person for a very high risk position. And so there was no way he could even detect what they was doing. And this was a part of their action plan. This wasn't in the interim when before they got caught. A part of their action plan, they still hired somebody who was inexperienced and did not give them the proper systems that they needed to even detect if they were doing what they were supposed to do. Okay, and then in the end, they get a slap on the wrist. But again, when we hear $1.9 billion, everybody, 1.9 billion. They made that in 5 weeks. So that was a slap on the wrist. And of course, we see HSBC still going strong around the world. Right? So it just depends on who your network is, who you know, and who you do business with.
Excuse me, Ms. Bullard.
Right? Yes, go ahead.
Are utility companies, are they required to, what am I gonna say? Regularize, I mean, certain say regular, but sort of say know their client, because the thing about it is it's by means of the home whereby I can be carrying on, especially nowadays, most of my fraudulent business.
But most of all, they are owned by the government.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so it's left to the government to ensure that there's no, I mean, no money laundering. I guess we do have the case where Leslie Miller went and paid $30,000 in cash to BPL. And so that did cause a red flag a few years ago. So yeah, that is valid what you're saying. But again, they should not.
Because here it is now. Let's just simply say discussion, my grandmother died, right? A lot of persons are paying light bills, water bills, phone bills, internet bills for persons who have since been deceased. And they refuse to change it over because it's going to cost them more trouble. They have to prove, okay, this person, and a lot of persons are using the deceased to carry on illegal business.
Okay, so it'd be a very reactive rather than proactive. So as soon as that causes a big red flag and a problem somewhere else, then of course it's gonna happen now. It's proposed that, remember I told you all what is it? The Equifax people, Credit Rating Bureau.
They're already here.
They're already here.
I saw on LinkedIn that they had a job, CRIF.
Okay, you better get that job.
No. I just saw it because I use it as a metric factor, not to say so much for saying what jobs available, but I just need to know. For me, it's sort of like keeping up with news.
Yeah. So I don't think they're up and running yet.
I think that they are. I think that they are up and running internally, Ms. Bullitt, but possibly not for public knowledge.
No,
Okay,
they're running for public knowledge. It's just they haven't been fully. It's called CRIF, so they're not fully implemented yet because they're still requesting information from places like utility companies and banks and stuff to actually have enough information to create a credit score per se.
Because they're out of Europe. They're out of Europe. We didn't go.
And so there was debate.
We didn't go to
transit or not. There was debate on whether they were gonna come on during the pandemic, because of course, a lot of people are falling behind because of the pandemic. And the second thing was they were discussing whether or not to include utilities. So you would
I think that's the biggest thing right there.
Yeah. So when they find out that a lot of dead persons still have utilities, then you would see that industry push to say, how do these people have electricity if this person has been dead for 5 years?
And the bill is being maintained.
Yeah. I put another movie that was a good one for money laundering, The Laundromat. It's also on Netflix. I think you would like that.
What's the name of it?
The Laundromat. It's on Netflix.
The laundry, yeah. Somebody told me about that. Yeah, I have to look that up. Yeah.
It's a funny twist and divulges into several different countries and how the whole process actually works from top to bottom.
Okay, good. So all of us watch that, and again, this creates awareness, because a lot of times compliance officers are under a lot of pressure, and they feel, it is your job to ensure that your institution remains compliant. If you organize yourself and you have the various controls in place and you have the sufficient support, then it's achievable. What you don't want to do is worry every day if somebody infiltrates your system. You want to ensure that your controls are in place and that they are effective. And once they are effective, there's nothing else you can do. The only thing you could do to avoid going to jail is be able to explain, these are the controls, these are when I tested it, these are the reviews I conducted on Ms. Bullitt. Ms. Bullitt went out right after class and committed fraud. But if you're unable to say, if you're unable to say what the controls are, what the policies are, and how you would have prevented Ms. Bullitt from depositing that money, then you implicate yourself. Okay, you can mitigate it, you cannot eliminate. Okay, so that's the importance.
So then, Ms. Bullitt, I'm assuming if for the sake of discussion that is brought into topic, I guess they'll have to decide, okay, how will they actually verify the status of these personnel? Because the thing about it is the Registrar General office should be the first place they need to go.
You mean with the elderly?
Yeah,
I'm talking to a pass.
I'm talking about the deceased persons.
Yeah, well, first of all, the government has to work, right? Because there's national insurance right there. Who should know if the person is alive? Yeah, right. So, right. So there has to be, again, an assessment or review or some type of verification. That's like national insurance. That's what you have to do to get pension. So, not that only old people are dead, but yeah, they have to do some sort of review. And I guess I can imagine that it's coming. Soon as there's a blow up, it's coming. Because like I said, we are reactive rather than proactive. So something has to go wrong first. And then we'll say it's important enough to spend the money to put the systems in place and to hire the staff to do, this review.
Isn't that where institutions like that should be working together?
Yeah, they should. Should. And again, back to what Mr. Noah said, who is the, chief engineer or the chief decision maker? No, all of them, they establish these committees and they have these representatives from each institution who is supposed to verify that whatever policies and procedures that they put in place is being enforced and carried out. So they have their various inspectors for, the various regulators and IRCA, right? Oh no, that's television and news, right? And radio and stuff like that. Okay, yeah. So you see various commissions. I'm not certain there's a commission for electricity. No. Yeah. And then they actually have a private as well. Yeah, perhaps the union should be verifying it or pushing or something to that. I don't know, but they like you say, they all need to come together and work. But national insurance definitely have the information. So they need to liaise with NIB and have that representative do those checks and balances so persons can no longer defraud the system. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Any other questions or concerns?
Because a person could take their Grammy's bill, write a letter, sign the Grammy name, and say, "This is my proof of address. Time now. You were doing fraudulent business."
Yeah. And for some reason, persons prefer to do fraudulent business. Then I don't know why they say it's too much of a hassle, but to me, it's too much of a hassle to come up with all these scenarios. Like somebody was telling my daughter, they just pay $500 and take the driver's license test, and I say, and it's $15. Are you crazy? Like why? Like why would you even suggest that? No. I said she'll take it until she passes. They could refer them to the $500. Say, oh, I tell her she will take it till she passes. Just do it. If you aren't doing nothing wrong, don't worry about it. Bring an ASU contract. But there are people who are doing legitimate business. Why do work around? It's easy to do it the legitimate way. Bring an ASU contract. Let that bank check and verify. So if something does happen, the bank could say, "Hey, we put a hold on this account because this lady didn't pay somebody else out, and there's a court case against her. We put a hold on your account because we had to block your ASU lady account. Hopefully you don't get paid." Or these things can help. These things can help. So, compliance is everybody's business. So everybody has to get involved because, like I said, criminals are very savvy, and they all day long last week working from 9 to 5. They sitting down and thinking about a way to defraud the system. So everybody needs to get on board and do their part. Okay. Any questions or concerns?
I actually have a question that relates to the exam. There is, like in the breakdown of the exam, there's an essay, and then there are essay questions. Let me go back to it to make sure.
No, so there's one mandatory essay that's worth 20 points, and that's why I was telling you it will probably be on this Eggman group. So that's why I suggested everybody should read.
And that's the one that's 300 words. Was it 300? Okay. 1,000 words.
No, in the homework, it's 1,000 words. In the exam, it's 20 points. So when we get to review, I normally say write 10 points on each question. And so on this one, I'll say write 20 points on each question and do some research and, so we want to avoid the fluff.
Okay, that's good.
Will there be any quizzes other than the essay? Like, will you be doing like bi-weekly or like pop quizzes or anything like that?
Well, the classwork, if everybody was in class, this is each week, this was the quiz. So I gave it to you as classwork.
Okay.
So because we're online and because of the pandemic, we took away the quizzes and we put it as classwork.
Okay.
Okay, so take advantage of the practice.
Yep, of course.
Yeah.
Makes it
Because
easier.
again, like I say, a lot of those questions are similar or they come back on the exam. And so if you do your classwork, if you spend the 2 to 3 hours a week to read, if you plan ahead now, you know, when your final exam is and you have the study days, it's achievable, you know, and it's a lot of information and we'll see how to scale it down and get to the meat because a lot of that it's very easy to put a whole bunch of fluff in answering these questions. Okay, and you definitely do get more points for real life scenarios. So this is why we want to read the newspaper. This is why we want to do research and find out, you know, what's in the news about the risk assessment, what really happened. Like how I said, the person could be in charge, and a lot of people didn't take it seriously. And was there any support? Was there an industry update? You know, all of that proves your understanding. Okay, when you could tie in the real life scenarios. And definitely when you get to ICA, you know, they always ask you to choose the jurisdiction of your choice. And of course, the easiest jurisdiction to choose is the Bahamas, right? And so right now you want to start your library. And so when you know, and for those who would have started an intro should have their library already. Compile all your research on risk assessment, compile all your research on international standards, on due diligence, on tax, on sanctions, and you will see 50% of your research will be done when you get to ICA. You will need it again.
I have a question, Ms. Bullard.
Go ahead.
Earlier, you noted about documenting and stating why, and also having proof of the decisions, the methodologies that you use, right? So, say you were working for Company A as the compliance officer. You've left your post, you were offered a better opportunity at Company B, or you were tired there, so you left. And in any event, you're at Company B. 2 years later, Company A is now before the courts during your tenure at that company. Will you be called before the courts as well?
Of course.
What I'm going to say, could you be?
They have 7 years. What is the
statutory?
Statutory, yeah. They have 7 years to bring you before the courts. So
okay.
Don't think, and a lot of people think that they are going to jump ship now, or this company going downhill. I am about to jump ship. Even the regulators are now, because of course we know by now that the MLRO is a regulated function, and so they are even compiling a list of regulators who would have jumped ship or who could not answer questions, and that means you will not be able to be in that approved position again. Now you could get a job, but you will not be able to, you know, anything that requires that intense background check or the senior position, you know, the 3, senior official 1, senior official 2, and the MLRO, you won't be able to hold that position again.
Reason why I'm asking, and that's some good information as well, is because, you know, like when you leave an organization, whatever was there supposed to remain confidential. So as the MLRO, are you supposed to keep separate notes to say, hey, I have to get pulled before the courts? I don't know what notes management has kept since I have left. Are you supposed to have something separate to say, okay, this is my proof or my backup in case I need to be before the courts?
Well,
because you know you're not
recorded. I will always say cover yourself. Now
Okay.
you are not supposed to, you know, you have to follow the policies of the company that says, you know, you're not allowed to reproduce or recreate or, you know, any of that information. But if there's an exit interview that all compliance professionals have with the regulator, in that exit interview, I that's where you should share everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be okay from I was there in 2010 to 2015. These were the recommendations I made. This is what I signed off on. This was the STRs that I filed. And here's the documentation commission.
Well, I mean, no, and only if there was an issue, and the regulator will ask you, are there any issues? Are there any procedures in place that are not being followed? Did you make a recommendation? And, you know, like somebody had said, there were accounts that were approved that compliance had denied. And so outside of compliance, they created this association or this board, this committee to say they approve an account, and compliance had already denied them. And so that person had resigned. And when the regulator came in, that was the first thing they asked for. They said, we understand that you'll have some accounts that were approved that compliance had denied, upon which authorization was that done. And they got, that company didn't close down, but got a fine.
Now, Ms. Bullard, I do have a question about that directly. I know that this is a very subjective thing in some ways as to what compliance officers will make, how they will make their recommendations. And in some instances, it'll go off of experience and you know, other things that they've garnered over the years that they've done to make a recommendation to deny or to approve. In this case, deny, where they would have gotten overridden. But at the end of the day, given that in your exit interview or whatever the case may be, that those assessments were made on somewhat of a subjective standpoint, is that something that they need to know about, or that you need to make your notes on in connection with that? Or how do you handle those kind of things?
Your approval process is documented, and you normally get a note for anything outside what you have written. And so if you have stated that all accounts must be approved by compliance, that in your risk framework that is sent to the regulator has that on file. They will open up your AML policy or wherever you would have written that, and it says all of accounts must be approved by compliance. You can't do something different. Okay? If you want to do something different, you have to document that and let the regulator know. Our approval process is, if compliance denies, then the board will approve, or an association. No, the regulator won't. They will send your AML directive back or your approval process back and say, no, it can't work like that. You know, there are persons that, or institutions that say, there's a compliance committee or an AML committee for approval of new accounts. A lot of times the CEO used to be on that committee, and of course, he pushing sales. And so most recently, I've seen that the regulator has removed the CEO as a part of the approval process for account opening. But normally, the committee, they normally say there has to be a vote. There are 5 persons on the committee and 3 persons have to say yes. And if those 3 persons say yes and somebody is saying no, they have to write a report and explain on what basis they are approving this account. And I tell you, a lot of people have gotten into problems for that. Okay, so that's when you see a company, they want to do a workaround, because compliance is completely independent of the business. So they're not influenced. And normally if compliance says no, normally that account should not be open. But like I said, I see these organizations that create these committees to combat, you know, compliance saying no, or for sure it's the high risk accounts that normally have the problem. And so they say in their documentation, compliance will approve low and medium, and the committee will approve high. So they get those 3 votes in there. And so you want to make sure that your account opening committee, you know, I don't know, these people aren't in cahoots, they aren't working together. And when they document the reason why, that is shared with the board. Because when the regulator come in, they're going to check. And so, and they require you to keep a copy of any account that has been rejected. Because I think I told you all the case where we had somebody who came in and said, we are going to create the 53rd state in the United States. And they brought us all these documentation with had Donald Trump's signature, and and apparently they're supposed to be Area 51 or something like that, where they have NASA and or where they do all their testing and what have you, and every single document was fraudulent. But they came in, they wanted to meet with us and explain to us so we would understand it, and everything was fraudulent. So again, central bank asks that you keep a copy of all the accounts that you deny, because they want to create a blacklist. Because we had found out, we call central bank on the phone and tell them these people in here and be scared, and we reported that right away. So of course they was able to put a blacklist out that no bank should open up an account for this group who's purporting to establish the 53rd state. No, it's just these people who dress up in business suits, had a PowerPoint and everything, and so they could create a blacklist that and they were able to share that with other institutions. These people going around trying to open up an account. Yeah, so you have to have it documented who is to approve, and they normally check to make sure you're not going outside of that approval. And what you would do is put the positions up to be reviewed annually. That way, if you know that Ms. Bullitt and if Cassie say yes, Ms. Bullitt just say yes, you could say, okay, y'all up for review. We're going to get somebody else to sit on the board. Just to protect yourself. Because you do have instances, and I think I used this scenario where Laura who sells fruit vegetables. Imagine Shane Gibson or Frank Smith or some PLP had an account with us. Right? And I'm sure they do with some institutions. Imagine Laura sitting on that board. She's saying that's a witch hunt, or some PLPs or some FNMs. Don't put Elma before the courts. Don't do this. We can't close her account yet. We can't do this. Right? So you want to ensure that, we as a country of friends, family, and lovers, ensure that you have proper persons following, even though they are affiliated, they're making a decision based on their affiliation, but based on, what the policy and procedure says and what is right. Okay.
So Ms. Bullitt, you're saying that each and every person who is calling themselves a compliance officer in the jurisdiction of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, they are regulated, or they haven't been caught up yet with the regulators? Because companies, okay, say this is a position, but then who's to say that that person has been vetted?
No, it's the MLRO, the Money Laundering Reporting Officer. Okay. So you can be the compliance officer, but normally the person who is the head of the compliance department is the MLRO, and that's the regulated function.
Okay then. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, yeah, and they have been vetted.
Okay.
Yeah, because you have to submit your CV, 3 years of financials, reference letter, all sorts of deliverables to the regulator to be able to be approved for that position.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what you're saying, that you are, and the regulators catch up with you, and that's not the case. Then you and your company all will be fine alike.
I don't understand your question. Would you mean that's what you say that you are?
What I'm saying is that, a lot of local companies, they, like you said, they give persons positions. And so
financial services now, not local. I mean, financial services require an MLRO.
Oh, okay. But what I'm saying is, if they, you have companies that say that that's the case, but that person was not brought before the regulators. Okay, we just give you this position. Or that can't happen like that. You're saying you can't get your license?
It can't happen. You can't get your license.
Okay.
You cannot get a license unless you identify who your MLRO is on staff.
Okay.
And that person is then approved. If they do not approve that person, you do not get your license.
Fair enough. Okay.
If by your regulator, whoever your regulator is. If the insurance commission by the, if insurance company by the insurance company, gaming by the gaming board.
And that is confirmed.
And the gaming board application is 66 pages.
Wow.
And then if you divorce and they want fingerprints.
Wow. So that's confirmed annually every year, Miss Bullitt, at renewal?
No, you don't have to have that renewed. Once you pay your banking and license fees, you know, whomever, if your regulator, if your compliance person resigns, then they have to have an exit interview and they have to advise the regulator. But there's no renewal of it. You know, they just put something in place where they say they want to have an audience annually. So that's where the compliance person will come in and discuss any problems that they were having with the institution. Other than that, there's no renewal. It's just when they become the MLRO, they are assessed and verified. There's a fit and proper policy that you have to follow to ensure that that person in that position is fit and proper with the position.
Fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, good. Any other questions or concerns? Okay, good. So we know what we have to do for next week. We want to try and answer question 1. 2 questions on the chapter 1. We want to ensure that if we have any questions, we'll discuss them at the start of the class, ensure we have sufficient information. Your please don't come to the class and say, "Hi, answer question 1." Or what did, you know, please, you know, do you research the mutual evaluation report if you are in intro? You've gotten a copy. If not, you know, get to know the persons in the class. I think you'll have a WhatsApp group. Persons who have it can share it, or you can go online and look for it. The mutual evaluation report of 217. The same one that. Yeah. Yeah. It looks like this. Okay, so there you can start your research and look for it for those who don't have it, and get to know the people in the class, and so you can network and buddy up with somebody, so you can, if you know, feel a little timid on Rotary or Kiwanis or Toastmasters, and those of you who are part of the clubs, please share with the new persons so they can feel comfortable and send us an invite. Okay, thank you, Godette, for also Breaking Bread. Ozark is there, and Dirty Money, and Laundry Mat. So there's a whole lot of Netflix you could watch. And again, all of this is just to give you awareness, because a lot of times, you know, compliance is seen as the police. We think we have to save the entire organization, and you know, so you want awareness, or sometimes it could be a witch hunt, or you are being set up, or you know. So just create awareness. You watch all of those programs, okay, and then read.
You know, we only got 10 days to do this thing, this paper now, right?
10 days. You normally have 1 week. You normally have 1 week. You all have 10 whole days. You normally have 7.
Stretch
Wait,
out
you
to
can't count. No, it is
stretches out
not.
to 14.
Today is the 25th. That's 15 days.
We don't count the weekends.
15 days. No. That's 13 then. You know, but again, listen, it's very comprehensive, and I always encourage everybody to unwind, rejuvenate yourself, feel good, and then pick it up. Okay, and so you could retain it. Miss Buller does not want to sit here for 3 hours and you'll fall asleep, and you know, you already know what Miss Buller talking about, and you know, it boring. We this will be just as interesting as we make it. Okay, and so read the newspaper, come and share, and let's have a lively and provocative discussion, and hopefully we retain some of this. Okay, because it is a lot, but it's achievable. Okay, so you have enough days, but again, if you do not want to submit it for a grade, even though I would suggest you do that, because that's your 20-point question, and you want to ensure that you don't have a bunch of fluff, but you have some meat.
But I mean, given that it's 10 days a day, the material is.
It's 13 days.
13 days. 13 days. The material that we would have covered by 13 days would give us enough information to do people, you think?
Yeah, you only have to read those 3.
The 3 cases.
Mhm.
Okay.
And so if you all need, we have sufficient time. We may have sufficient time after we talk about taxes. But again, I want y'all to be able to digest and not be overwhelmed by information. So if we read that and talk about taxes, and I know a lot of us aren't familiar, I think that'll be message overload. You know, so read it in your own time, and then let's discuss it. And then if we need to go through it entirely, then we'll go through it entirely. But you can do it. No. Okay, y'all can do this. In the beginning, it just feels like a lot, but by halfway through, everybody will be comfortable. Okay, and so who is in chat? Is the person here who is the administrator for the WhatsApp group in this class?
Is it the same WhatsApp group from intro?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
No, it didn't work out.
I know. Hi, good night. Hello.
Sorry, Donna. Donna, I can't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we had created a WhatsApp group for intro. I know I still have some person's phone numbers. I guess what we can do is maybe close out that WhatsApp group for intro, because I don't think everybody that was on that has joined intermediate, and then we can do a new one with the persons that are in this group now. But I would need additional phone numbers of everybody who's interested in the WhatsApp group for intermediate, if they want to just maybe drop their phone number in the comment section, the message section.
Okay, and did you find the last one beneficial, Donna?
Yes, it was very beneficial.
Okay, good. And y'all studied together as well?
No.
Some of us.